NetSuite is everything you need to grow, all in one place. NetSuite is offering a one-of-a-kind financing program to those ready to graduate.
Head to netsuite.com/Fox right now. netsuite.com/Fox.
More talks ahead on trying to break the logjam over infrastructure spending. Fox's Rich Edson with that.
The president will be negotiating with Democrats and Republicans next week. That's according to the White House, to try to advance this $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure proposal. But how to pay for it is the issue. You've got Democrats who are calling to generally raise taxes on those earning more than $400,000 a year. But you've got Republicans who want to use unused COVID funding. That's something that Democrats are against.
Meanwhile, Democrats are working on their own plan for items that might be excluded in a compromise. Now that New York City has dropped many of its COVID restrictions, folks are snapping up concert tickets. That's good news for the city's large venues. But what about the smaller places?
Industry advocates are reminding that small, privately owned venues across the country are still struggling and trying to survive. Congress set aside $16 billion in emergency funding for small venues in December, but the Small Business Administration has only awarded about $530 million worth of that money.
That's the Fox Business Network's Lydia Hu. A 22-year-old man lost his hand in the violence that ensued when police tried to break up a rave party in France. Others were hurt, including 5 officers. Officials say it took police more than 7 hours to disperse the crowd. Americans today are celebrating Juneteenth, marking the end of slavery in our country.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com.
With each successive bite failing to relieve his anxieties, increasingly worried man Dylan Hawks told reporters today that he has yet to come across any trace of guacamole in his burrito, despite having specifically requested it when ordering.
No, there definitely wasn't any guac there. Cheese, beans, chorizo. Oh man, I hope they didn't forget.
Hawks has continued to maintain hope that there may still be an undiscovered sliver of avocado somewhere in his tortilla. However, with his fears for the meal mounting, Hawks has reportedly considered asking the cashier for a refund at various points while eating the burrito.
The thing is, if you had a burrito and it was missing cheese, you might not notice it because there's sour cream, but guacamole is completely different. I just don't know how I wouldn't have tasted it by now. Christ, I'm almost done with this thing.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live, and of course you're invited to join us here if you would like. We have a new telephone number for you. If you, last tuned in last Saturday, it has changed. 202-380-3699. That's 202-380-3699. Joining you in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
Biggles Mountaineer.
And the Reverend Captain Kickass is here.
And the point of the show is, well, it's open phones every single night of the week. We do this live 7 nights a week. You can, of course, join us with whatever happens to be on your mind. We bring things to the table to talk about as well that you might find interesting. We're also now able to take SIP calls. Now, if you don't know what that is, I'm not going to spend the time to explain it, but I did write an explainer sort of piece for our website. So if you want to learn how you could call us over the internet from anywhere in the world, so our listeners in Africa or elsewhere should now be able to easily call into the show over any iPhone or Android device. So
technology.
cool.
Isn't it great?
It's pretty great. It's just
when it works.
Yeah, you got to jump through a few hoops.
Some of it.
Yeah.
Some of it is really, really, really great.
Some of it's creepy.
Some of it, yes. But basically, it falls into those two categories.
Right.
Like, it's reached the point that it is so powerful that all of the stuff that is helping us is just amazing. And all of the stuff that isn't helping us is just creepy.
Some of it can be terrifyingly creepy. And,
well, it's like anything else, right? A hammer can be used to, build a hospital.
Right.
But it can also be used to crack a skull. So it's all about
which is why it'll be handy to have that hospital there for you.
That's right. But I mean, it's all about the intent of the person behind the tool. So.
Yeah, and so we're going to get into some of the news here, including one of the big headlines from this week that I don't think anyone discussed until now is that Obamacare has survived, according to the Supreme Court. In a 7-2 decision. All those Republicans who thought that Trump stacking the Supreme Court was going to, somehow do something. They voted in favor of Obamacare.
You mean the government decided to vote that they can, in fact, require you to do something else?
That's right.
Can you briefly summarize what Obamacare is for the unenlightened or the old who have forgotten?
I don't really know all the details. I've never done anything regarding Obamacare. I've never signed up or done whatever it is that they want you to do. But they call it the Affordable Care Act was what it was actually called when it was passed however many years ago. And according to the story here at CNBC, I guess there was some sort of individual mandate. So the idea is that every person in the United States has to...
Oh, this is like the states that have mandatory car insurance. It's mandatory health insurance.
Those states being just about all of them.
Yeah.
Except New Hampshire.
Yeah. No, when I heard about that, I'm like, wait. So you're telling me they are requiring me to purchase a service?
Yes.
And at the time, I hadn't, fully realized what the nature of the government was. And, I thought at least, there are bounds of reason and decency that would be held to. No.
No, this is all about funneling money into the insurance companies' pockets. Because if you're required to buy a product, then there's nothing really stopping them from raising the rates on you.
Wouldn't you know? Hard to keep prices down when someone's got a gun to your head making you purchase.
Yeah, this is the thing to be upset about with government. I believe it's the first time at the federal level, the ACA's Obama Don't Care Act is the first time at the federal level that people have been required to purchase a good or service via the federal government.
Really?
I believe so. I can't name another thing.
It's certainly not the first time they've told you what to do.
Right,
or
that's
how to run
true.
Your life.
But I think that it was being talked about as if it were a paradigm shift when it was even being introduced, if I remember correctly. Callers, correct me if I'm wrong. They can call in at
202-380-3699.
I think this is an onslaught on basically the free market. So there are a lot of problems that the government solves that are much better solved by insurance companies if they're allowed to operate properly.
Yeah.
And what they've done to the medical insurance, I mean, they've just completely removed the idea of medical insurance. So if you get insurance on your house burning down, the insurance agent should not hear a crackling fire in the background while you're doing it. So, I mean, that's the idea. Here is this thing. It's going well. It's functioning. But something could go wrong. So we're going to, as a group, we're going to distribute the risk so that none of us gets hit too hard when it does happen. But with requiring that all of the pre-existing conditions don't stop you from getting any of your any insurance coverage. I mean, that's not insurance.
That's not the business model. That's not how it was originally designed or intended.
Well, and I mean, just fundamentally, that is not insurance. That is something fundamentally different.
Well, the medical industry is already a big, cesspool of government interference anyway. It is one of the most over-regulated industries in all of Earth's history. particularly the United States one. Everybody complains about the high cost of healthcare. I can tell you for a fact, having held a job for a couple of different medical products companies, that most of their overhead goes into compliance.
Wow.
Yeah. Compliance with federal rules. And
I've heard that about doctors' offices too.
And it moves at a pace of a sloth because of it. For example, I was working for one of these medical products companies. I noticed a typo on one of their web pages, a typo that probably could have gotten them sued.
Oh boy.
Right. And so I brought it up to my superiors and brought it up to their superiors. And they were like, okay, well, you need to go talk to there was a committee for like a change committee.
Just to update a website.
Just to like
to fix a typo.
Yeah. Change a typo, right? You know, and so I had to go and present this typo to the committee and screenshots and all this kind of stuff.
Wow.
And then it got put on a docket.
Wait, so
right?
so were you so you were working for them at the time though?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so at least you got paid for, ridiculous bureaucracy.
I mean that's the reason that I don't work there anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
I come from I used to work for startup companies, several of them in the Seattle area, and that's great because you can move so fast. If something needs done, you just go and talk to Bob over here, and Bob goes, "Oh yeah, okay, it's done."
Mm-hmm.
But no, in this medical products manufacturing company, I had to go to this committee. They had to put it on a docket, and then somebody, I don't know who, and they won't tell you who, somebody on the committee evaluates what the priorities are for whatever comes up to the monthly meeting, the change committee meeting. And if your thing didn't make it to the monthly meeting, you just have to wait until the next month. So I quit working there, and it stayed up. That typo stayed up for 6 more months.
You should have sued them. You should have become their customer and then sued them over this typo.
The particular product that they manufacture
just
wouldn't
to get
apply
it changed on the website
to my particular health issues. But yeah, I mean, I thought I was doing them a solid. I'm like, hey, look at this, and this is completely wrong. And somebody's probably going to sue you over this at some point because everybody's sue happy these days.
Oh yeah, there's no end to the just nightmare bureaucracy stories that people could tell from
that's
that
just a
business.
little tiny example of wading through the enormous bureaucracy. And they claim that they have to have this bureaucracy because of government regulations. Right.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I mean, it seems to me that the move that the government is making right now is to govern every tiny aspect of our lives under the auspice of health. Well, is your health sufficient that we can allow you to engage in XYZ activity? Let us determine whether your health is where we feel it should be. And as part of that, I mean, this is basically, it is socializing medicine.
Sure it is.
I mean,
it's steps towards that. I mean, it's not total socialism.
Well,
yet.
yeah. It's thin edge. It's thin edge of the wedge. We're not in total social medicine. I mean, honestly, total social medicine might be an improvement from where we're at. But
well, and to call it healthcare is a misnomer. It should be called disease management.
Yeah,
because that's the system that you have.
Right.
You don't have healthcare. Doctors are not incentivized to keep you healthy. Right. The healthcare industry isn't incentivized to keep you healthy. What they're incentivized to do is figure out what's wrong with you, put you on some drugs to maintain that particular ailment for the rest of your life. Basically.
Well, and they want to tell you what to do and make you pay for them doing it.
Sure do. Although I wouldn't say total socialism would be in any way better than this. This is bad. That would be even worse. I mean, that's why you still have people from Canada coming down here to get their health care. More on the way. 202-380-3699. Free Talk Live.
The Terran Federation and the Terran League have been killing each other for decades. Sheltered, wealthy, and light years from the threat, the members of the 500 have no interest in changing that. When Rear Admiral Terrence Murphy is given governorship of a backwater system, a risk-free path to wealth and power is his for the taking. But Murphy is a man of honor, duty, and responsibility. He intends to stop the killing, whatever the cost. Governor, by David Weber and Richard Fox, from BaneBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Anyone can publish on the internet, but not everyone is publishing material suited for online reading. According to the Yahoo Style Guide, it cautions that internet content has a few seconds, 3 or less, to encourage people to read more, to take action, or navigate to another one of your pages. So make it easy for readers to pick and choose. Isn't that the way you poke around online? Use short words, short sentences, short paragraphs, bulleted lists, and short pages. Front load what you write, putting the most important information at the beginning of headlines and paragraphs and sentences. Same goes for your keywords, what someone would likely type into the search box on Yahoo or Google. For more tips on communicating better online or in a job interview or everyday life, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
I said, come on.
Yeah, welcome to Free Talk Live. You can dial in and join us here. Whether you want to talk about Obamacare being upheld by the Supreme Court or whatever is on your mind, you can do that here. The number is 202-380-3699. That's 202-380-3699. In the studio with you, you've got Ian.
Bakeless Mountaineer.
And my name is Rick Forsyth. I live in Silver Pond with my parents, George and Edna Forsyth, and my sister, Suzanne. I'm president of the debate team, captain of my baseball team over at Silver Pond High. I have a dog named Rusty, and my hobbies include coin collecting and dry humping cheerleaders.
Is this a dating profile? What is that?
That's a quote from an underrated movie from the 90s called SFW, or So Effing What.
I don't think I've seen that one.
Oh, it's a great movie. Great soundtrack. Guar, Soundgarden,
Oh, wow.
Marilyn Manson, Suicidal Tendencies.
Damn.
Yeah, Suicidal has a song on there called, it's never been released on any other thing that I'm aware of, just that soundtrack called No Effing Problem.
Nice.
So it goes really well with the title of the movie, SFW.
He's Captain Kickass. The Supreme Court ruled 7-2 on Thursday against Texas and other Republican-led states, seeking to strike down Obamacare in the law's latest test before the nation's highest court. This, according to CNBC, the court reversed an appeals court ruling that had struck down the law's individual mandate provision. The Chief Justice, or one of the justices, Breyer, said Texas and the other states that challenged the law failed to show that they were harmed by it. Quote, neither the individual nor the state plaintiffs have shown that the injury they will suffer or have suffered is fairly traceable to the allegedly unlawful conduct of which they complain, he said. Whatever the hell that means.
Really? Because, like, you forced me to give you $600 that I didn't want to give you. Isn't that, haven't I been injured by that?
Is that how much this costs?
Well, so with Obamacare, if you don't have insurance, then you have to pay $600 a year. At least that's last I looked into.
Because insurance costs a lot more than that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and their enforcement mechanism is of course through theirs, or the IRS.
The IRS.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The decision marks the third time that Obamacare, officially known as the Affordable Care Act, has survived a challenge before the Supreme Court since Barack Obama signed the legislation into law in 2010. Defenders of the act worried that the Supreme Court, with its 6-3 majority of Republican-appointed justices, would scrap the law. But instead, they voted 7-2 in favor of it.
Of course they did. Why wouldn't they?
Wow, Republican leaders not scrapping Obamacare.
Repugnant.
I think I may have heard of this, say, the last 4 years that we had going on.
I've got new parodies for that. I've got Repugnatkins and Dumb Old Krats.
Speaking of that, Biden, who served as vice president when the law was signed, praised Thursday's ruling as a major victory for millions of Americans who are at risk of losing their health care. Because if it weren't for insurance, no one would ever be able to get health care, right?
Hey, now this is a major victory for pharmaceutical companies, for insurance companies, for regulators, for the IRS, for everyone in government who wants to tell you exactly whether you can eat that or not.
Yeah, who's the loser in this equation?
Oh, well, us.
Anyone who
regular
cares
people
about choice. Anyone who cares about the freedom to make decisions for their own body.
Yeah.
You know. Biden also vowed to expand Obamacare, which he said was a central promise in his campaign. Quote, after more than a decade of attacks on the Affordable Care Act through the Congress and the courts, today's decision, the third major challenge to the law that the Supreme Court's rejected, it's time to move forward and keep building on this landmark law. Now, what could that possibly mean? I mean, they're already saying everybody needs to have health insurance.
It means they're going to force people to buy other products and services now that the precedent has been set.
Now that this is something that they can do, the Supreme Court has backed it up time and time again. What's next?
Well, you know how we had this vaccine that we gave you, and we were, kind of toying with making it mandatory. Well, so this was the freebie, just as a sign of goodwill. Next time, it's still going to be mandatory, but you're going to need to buy it.
To pay for it.
Yeah.
202-380-3699 if you want to join us. He continued saying, today's decision affirms that the Affordable Care Act is stronger than ever, delivers for the American people, and gets us closer to fulfilling our moral obligation to ensure that here in America, health care is a right and not a privilege.
Government has moral obligations? When did government take on moral obligations? Can you show me the list of moral obligations? I'm not talking to you specifically, Ian. I'm talking to anybody. Can anybody show me a list where the government says, okay, we, as this organization of violence and force, have taken on this list of moral obligations?
They are morally obligated to wield a monopoly on the initiation of force in a given geographical region.
Yeah, I can't really find much that's moral at all about the state, the government, the federal government, the state of fill in the blank.
Can you find anything? I can't.
The city of whatever.
I mean, only because the existence of that organization violates consent.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's
so
right.
if you start
it's immoral
there,
by its base,
it in and of itself is unethical and also immoral.
And I would go so far as to say downright evil. I mean, when the nature of your existence is to aggress on people, to initiate force and fraud constantly in every subject of our lives, I'm sorry, you're not just not moral, you're evil.
No doubt about it. Today's decision, this according to one of the two dissenting judges, was the third installment in our epic Affordable Care Act trilogy, and it follows the same pattern and installments 1 and 2. In all 3 episodes, the court has pulled off an improbable rescue, he says. He didn't really even say why he opposed it. or at least they didn't highlight that. Trump tried unsuccessfully throughout his one term in office to overturn Obamacare. However, Congress, as part of the 2017 tax bill, effectively eliminated Obamacare's so-called individual mandate penalties by reducing them to $0. So
so there's that 600. That's probably why the Supreme Court said, well, you weren't injured. What? You could not buy this? I mean, we'll penalize you with $0, and that means that you don't have an injury in court.
Texas and more than a dozen other Republican-led states then filed suit after that change was made, arguing that made it unconstitutional. The Supreme Court had previously upheld the mandate under Congress's power to tax, but the GOP-led states argued the tax justification was no longer valid if the penalty was non-existent. Those states backed by the Trump DOJ argued the entire act should be erased if the individual mandate provision was found to be unlawful. And then they said...
Yeah, that's crazy. The idea that... obviously it's crazy that this particular group of people can tax the rest of us. But, I mean, even if you accept that as a given and, it's necessary and good that they do this. Okay, I'm sorry, requiring me to buy something is different from a tax. With a tax, you take my money. This is
not a tax.
This is creepy. Like, this is going somewhere weird, and I don't like it.
Yeah, well, one of the places it may be going is further consolidation in the insurance industry. Since, we've seen insurance companies buying each other up over time, there are fewer and fewer options in the marketplace.
Yep.
I demand that you shop around for this service. So not only do I take your money, I take your labor.
And then eventually, if they keep having to be insuring people with pre-existing conditions, they're going to go out of business, right? Because that's just... you can't keep that business running.
I'm sure they're too big to fail.
And then they'll get propped up, or the government will just take it over at some point. That could be the plan. What do you think? It's Free Talk Live.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Carl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
Free Talk Live.
For the listeners, each talk show has like you're in the Joe Blow Army, or, the Ditto Heads. Do the lefties have it too?
I couldn't tell you.
Ed Heads, isn't?
Yep, Ed Heads.
Yeah, Ed Heads. So they all have them. I really want to hear from you.
I'd like to rename our listeners Mindless Free Talk Live Zombies. What do you think?
Free Talk Live automatons.
Call in if you're a mindless Free Talk Live zombie.
What does it mean to you to be left? What does it mean to you
progressive?
To be right? What does it mean to you to be conservative? What does it mean to you to be liberal? I think they're very vague concepts that pit people against one another. Many people who otherwise, in the absence of being able to plaster themselves with that label, might find out they've got an awful lot in common.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
Hi, I'm Derek J. I don't want a politician to represent me. To me, government is the idea that one group of people can coerce everyone to comply with an edict or face increasing punishments up to and including death. Despite perhaps the most noble of intentions, the best government services are a far cry from what could be provided for by voluntary interactions. Besides, the people who call themselves the government wage wars and put peaceful people in jail for crimes involving no victims. If Starbucks used some of its money to drop bombs, I wouldn't shop there. So why would I support the American empire? The empire does not require my consent.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com. That's victimlesscrimespree.com.
Do you appreciate what we do? Help us advertise, market, and promote for just $5 a month at amp.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. The number, if you want to join us here, 202-380-3699. That's 202-380-3699. Joining you here in our studio, you've got me, Ian.
Bigless Mountaineer.
And a shiny forehead.
We got more federal news that, I wish we didn't have to talk about these people. I wish they would just disappear. So we didn't have to deal with any of them ever again.
I can deal with somebody who is, I don't know, a narcissist, a psychopath, on an individual basis.
Okay.
When all things are equal. What I really want to see disappear is this organization that attracts them all. And then they obviously end up abusing, their authority within that organizational structure because it's the only incentive they have.
Is there anyone who doesn't abuse authority? I mean, isn't that sort of the whole point? Authority is to abuse people?
It seems to be.
Yeah.
I can't find anyone who really doesn't when they have it. I mean, the obvious caveat there is to like an organization where your participation is voluntary and not coerced, right?
Well, yeah, if by authority you mean like the supposed ability to initiate force on people, that's one thing. But no, like there is legitimate authority.
Sure, like an expert in a field of study could be an authority on that subject.
Well, or even general authority. I mean, if you're raising kids, like, yeah, you're the authority. You know how to not get run over in traffic, for example. And I mean, when you're legitimately looking out for their interests, and that's exactly the con game that gets played on us, is that they tap into what is a really valuable instinct and a viable way of life, and they put themselves in the place of the government, which is why there is a very just a constant infantilization of all citizenry.
Right, treating us like children.
Exactly.
For years, freedom lovers have wanted to have a directory of liberty-minded businesses because, some of us are sick of giving our money to people that love the government. We'd rather spend our money on products and services offered by people within our liberty-friendly community. And so luckily, Liberty.menu was founded a few years back, and that allows you to do that if you're an individual who rejects the initiation of force and you agree to abide by the ethics of the non-aggression principle. You ought to list the things that you do at Liberty.menu. They make it super easy, and it's free to do it. So why not let people know that you love freedom? Unless you're worried about someone turning you in, which of course is actually a thing. Domestic terrorism is the new fight, supposedly, on the federal front. It used to just be about finding those dastardly Muslims, those brown people, those were who you needed to keep a lookout for. Well, now it's expanded to, anybody that might happen to live next door to you. According to Breitbart.com, Joe Biden's administration has announced plans to create ways for Americans to report radicalized friends and family to the government in an effort to fight domestic terrorism. In a conversation with reporters, one senior administration official explained the importance of stopping politically fueled violence before it starts. Quote, "We'll work to improve public awareness of federal resources to address concerning or threatening behavior before violence occurs," he said. Well, now why would you need to call the federal government? I mean, if there's actually violence that's going on, if that's what's, if you have a loved one who's planning to attack somebody.
Well, you're talking about crime. This is pre-crime.
That's right. But if there is somebody who's planning to attack somebody, I could see the reason to be concerned about that.
And maybe call the sheriff.
Indeed.
If you can't, handle it yourself.
But that's not what we're really talking about here. The official said, quote, "This involves creating contexts in which those who are family members or friends or coworkers know that there are pathways and avenues to raise concerns and
snitch
and seek help for those who they have perceived to be radicalizing and potentially radicalizing toward violence."
Isn't that the translation of the Nazi chant? Seek help.
Biden began his presidency with a stark warning in his inauguration speech about the, quote, "rise in political extremism, white supremacy, domestic terrorism that we must confront and we will defeat," he said. He described on June 1st the threat from white supremacy as, quote, "the most lethal threat to the homeland today."
It sounds so ridiculous to say white supremacy is a threat to homeland, right?
It sounds ridiculous to say it's a threat to anything, really. I mean,
well, it's funny. The increase in white supremacy seems to be precisely equal to the increase of rhetoric about white supremacy. It's wild.
Yeah, and when you actually get down to looking at these movements of these white supremacists, they're infiltrated left and right by federal agents. So a lot of the people who are calling the loudest for some of this whatever claptrap that they're talking about with white supremacy, a lot of them are federal agents themselves. Remember, there was a guy on the radio, I don't know, 2 decades, maybe 2.5 decades ago. His name was Hal Turner. And he wasn't on a lot of radio stations, but he had some kind of radio show on a few different stations. And he was a racist. He was a white supremacist. And the guy was terrible. I've never heard his show before, but he's just a terrible human being. Turns out years later, the information comes out that he was actually working for the FBI as basically somebody who was snitching out and recruiting. Essentially recruiting people into the movement and then snitching.
Well, how are we supposed to fight racism if we don't create racists?
It's the same thing's true with the so-called terrorists. Over the last 20 years almost now since 9/11, they've arrested over 200 people who were ostensibly going to cause some sort of violent terrorist strike within the United States, and almost every single one of them was sort of set up by the FBI.
Yep.
They were, in most cases, actually created by the FBI. The FBI might have gotten a tip that so-and-so was being radicalized by, Islam, radical Islam, and then FBI agents would come in and they would further radicalize this person.
And I believe many of them were actually given things to, cause the destruction by FBI agents.
Yes.
In other words, given the means, weapons or something along those lines.
What they thought were bombs.
And occasionally things that were actually bombs.
Did that ever happen?
That's what I've heard, is that they, on certain occasions, they actually gave them bombs.
Wow. I know that most of the time they just give them a fake bomb, and then because they thought it was a real bomb, they've got enough to arrest them on it.
Well, I want to get into, and I don't know if your article mentions it, and I didn't bring it for show prep, but I have read where Biden's crackdown on domestic terrorism specifically includes people with anti-government remic.
We're going to get to that.
Okay.
Yeah. But I just find it funny that they're acting like white supremacy is this big lethal threat. You remember Christopher Cantwell? That
I've never
guy?
met the man, but I remember him.
At one time he was a host on this show. We ended up firing him because he became a racist. He was a libertarian comedian who moved to New Hampshire and somehow ended up becoming a racist after a few years, and so we got rid of him. But, this guy wasn't a threat in any meaningful sense. And when you actually start looking at what was going on within their quote-unquote movement, it's a ton of infighting.
Right.
So, the reason why Chris Cantwell went to prison in January of this year, actually, after being held for a year, was because he was fighting with another Nazi online. They were having a spat over Telegram and insulting one another. And federal agents got their hands on the chat logs and came up with some sort of interstate threatening crime, and quote unquote, that they went after this guy with for doing nothing more that, as far as, I don't believe in what Chris Campbell believes in,
right?
But I also don't think that he should go to prison for fighting online, with nasty words
and
to
we're
somebody.
Supposed to have freedom of speech, so I don't understand where somebody can be imprisoned for things that they said or typed.
Well, if you do threaten a person, then supposedly that eliminates your freedom of speech, and then you can face legal consequences. But the idea that a Telegram chat,
I would say, if you it has to be credible or it's not a threat.
That's the thing.
Right.
I don't think it was.
I mean, it's S-talking.
He didn't even really know who this guy was, and the guy was living, 1,000 miles away from him.
Right.
And it was definitely S-talk. He said he was going to have sex with a man's wife in front of him. I mean, that's not a threat of rape.
Even if that was credible, that's not a threat of rape.
And again, why not let the Nazis fight with each other? Why did they have to go in and do something? Yeah. Let them fight with each other. That seems to be what they spend most of their time on, like the Libertarian Party. 202-380-3699. I'm not saying the Libertarian Party's Nazis, just saying they fight amongst themselves. There's more coming up here. This is Free Talk Live. On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp, is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
Your amp will directly change more lives by getting Free Talk Live in front of people looking for talk radio online and on the air. When you amp Free Talk Live, you get perks like access to the AMP-only Facebook group and AMP podcast. Visit amp.freetalklive.com. Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you're helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com. Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm. The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
Is Free Talk Live, and you can join us here. The number for you is 202-380-3699. That's 202-380-3699. Here in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
Beakless Mountaineer.
And the Reverend Captain Kickass.
The Department of Homeland Security looks like they're going to be widening their focus when it comes to so-called terrorism into domestic terrorism.
The homeland. Wasn't
Yeah.
that didn't
the enemy within?
What did the Germans call that?
Fatherland.
Fatherland. Right.
Mhm.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So.
Very similar.
Fatherland, motherland, homeland. Yeah, I mean, it's the same idea.
This land's not your land.
Well,
this land's not my land. It's all taken from us by the IRS, man.
Well, and I mean, if you really want to see what's headed up for us, just look into history, see what happened with the USSR. They set up snitch lines too, and soon you're going to have children informing on their parents.
You already have that, actually. They've been doing that for years in the United States, where they'll talk to school children and they'll say, hey, Bobby and Susie, do your parents smoke weed? Or they'll ask the whole class or whatever. Hey, if your parents are using drugs, let us know. We'll help them.
There were stories of kids turning their parents in.
Yeah, because, they don't know any better. They think that, I'm just telling my teacher what she wants to know. And then the cops show up and arrest their parents. I mean, that's been going on for decades in the war on drugs.
Won't be too long before they're using toll-free numbers. 1-800-2-SNITCH.
Yeah. And now it's going to be, hey, class, are your parents angry at the government? If so, we want to know because we want to help them. Just let us know.
Do your parents support hate speech?
Yeah.
You can tell hate speech by the following classification.
So they're targeting so-called white supremacy as the most lethal threat to the homeland today. That's according to Biden in a speech. And like I said before, I just don't buy it. I mean, I understand that's the big boogeyman that they're trying to trot out here, but
some of the most racist people I ever met, military people. Not all of them, but some.
Cops.
Of the most racist people I've ever met were
some cops for sure.
Active duty military.
Yeah, so I mean, I just don't buy it. There's so much infighting just from, not that I know about being in this movement or whatever, but I did know Christopher Cantwell. And so through him, my relationship with him as a peace minister, trying to minister to this guy, I did learn a little bit about the constant infighting going on in this movement and how small, how tiny it is. Chris Cantwell got in some hot water legally, and I think he thought that he was going to get people backing him up. And he didn't. There was no money behind this movement. He owes his defense attorney, I don't know, $25,000 or something like that. It's not like there's, a bunch of people out there supporting this guy. And he was one of the most widely renowned white supremacists of the last decade.
And I mean, if you are publicly revealed as a white supremacist, you get no support from any corner.
This is true.
Even the fellow white supremacists will not usually have your back because they don't want to catch any heat themselves.
True.
The 5 of them that there are.
But if there were hundreds of thousands of them or something, then for sure he would have at least gotten his legal bills covered or somewhat covered. But the Biden administration said it will also be working with large technology companies on increased information sharing to help combat radicalization. Quote, any particular tech company often knows its platform very well, but the government sees things. Actually, threats of violence across platforms. They see the relationship between online recruitment, radicalization, and violence in the physical world.
I've seen ads for, join the military on social media, so that's recruitment.
Yeah. Well, getting back to your point about how a lot of the most racist people you've ever met were cops, I mean, certainly the most nefarious military.
A lot of those guys become cops.
They
though.
do end up becoming cops.
I mean,
it's true.
certainly the most nefarious racists are the ones that get this kind of power, whether it is the power to kill in the military or as a cop, or the power to destroy people's lives through the legal system. The racists that we have are at their worst when you give them government power.
Well, it's the power that corrupts, right? So they get used to having this power by performing their duties in the military, following orders as they're told. And then when they get out of the military, they have a hard time adjusting to civilian life because they've been exposed to this thing where like they get to abuse their power when they have to deal with some other people in some foreign country. And so they come over here and they're not able to do it. So then they seek out other places where they can do, because they, quote, miss the action, unquote. The action that they're referring to is the adrenaline rush that they get when they abuse their power, when they abuse another human being because of their particular position, whether they're a cop or a military person, doesn't matter. They don't recognize it as abuse. They recognize it as action.
The Department of Homeland Security also plans to deploy, quote, digital literacy and digital fitness programs to help combat, quote, malicious content online that bad actors deliberately try to disseminate. Whatever that means. Again, they're working closely with the tech companies, big tech, Facebook and Google, and of course, they've been cozy with the government for years now, ever since the Obama administration.
Well, I mean, they wouldn't have come into the power that they have if it weren't for government sponsorship in pretty much all cases. Like, if you really dig into the largest tech companies, they always have a government sponsor at a crucial moment.
Yep.
And even if that weren't the case, they wouldn't be able to maintain their stranglehold without the protections that the regulation offers them.
Now, they are saying that, quote, this is a strategy that is agnostic as to political ideology or off the spectrum, they say. So as long as you're a threat, whether you're on the left or the right to the state, they will be focusing on you. Now, there's actually a detailed story that Glenn Greenwald put out. He's just been killing it recently on Twitter. I mean, just calling out the media for being ridiculously lapdoggish to the Biden administration. So if you're not following him, he's, I think, worth looking at, because he used to sort of be on the left, and then he got basically kicked out of his own organization that he helped found, The Intercept, or he ended up walking away from it because they were trying to tell him what to do.
Right.
And what he
the
could.
media is really corrupt. I'm going to form my own little media.
We talked about that here on Free Talk Live.
And look at what happened.
Yep. So entitled Domestic Violent Extremism Poses Heightened Threat in 2021, this March report. So this has been going on. Like they're continuing to ramp this up and talk about it. And now they're talking about turning in your friends and your family members. But they filed a report, the Domestic Department of Homeland Security, regarding political affairs domestically. It was in March. The director of the National Intelligence states that it was prepared in consultation with all these different agencies, FBI, CIA, DHS, etc. The primary point is this, quote, the intelligence community assesses that domestic violent extremists, which they're calling DVEs, who are motivated by a range of ideologies and galvanized by recent political and societal events in the United States, pose an elevated threat to the homeland, with a capital H, in 2021, while asserting that the most lethal of these threats is posed by racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists, or RMVEs, and militia violent extremists, MVEs. It makes it clear that its target encompasses a wide range of groups from the left, including Antifa, animal rights and environmental activists, pro-choice extremists, and anarchists.
Oh my God. Anarchists.
The report claims those who oppose capitalism and all forms of globalization, unquote, to the right, including sovereign citizen movements, anti-abortion activists, and those deemed motivated by racial or ethnic hatreds. So again, they're claiming this is a bipartisan effort to crack down on so-called domestic terror.
Well, if you look at your Nolan chart, you'll see that there are 4 squares there, and 2 of those are terrorists.
You know what is the Nolan chart?
So the Nolan chart is so you've got left-right politics and authoritarian libertarian politics.
Mm-hmm.
So it's it's a square with 4 squares. So you've got.
I think you meant 3 of the squares are terrorists.
No, 2 of them. Just the libertarian ones. So
confused.
libertarian left, like those are the people that really care about like getting health care taken care of, that don't like what they call
so you're saying the
capitalism.
libertarians are the terrorists?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
From the government's perspective.
Absolutely.
Okay, I was thinking of from our perspective where the left, the right, and the authoritarians would be the terrorists.
Well, no, I mean the authoritarians of left and right are perfectly welcome to the government.
Yeah.
But
the government is terrorism because
absolutely.
terrorism, the definition of it is
actual terrorism, yeah.
Yeah, the definition of terrorism is the use or the threat of violence to achieve a political goal.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the government does day in, day out.
Now, let's just...
Basically their job as far as most people are concerned.
Let's just say for a moment that the government has done its homework and there is a rise in anti-government sentiment amongst people, regardless of whether they're
Can't
white
imagine why that would have
supremacists or racists, or if they're short or fat or tall or old or young or whatever. Let's just say for a minute that there is a rise in anti-government sentiment. If that is true, then that only speaks to the failure of those people who call themselves government. Because if you're doing your job and you're pleasing the people of which you are, the authority over,
then they'll love you.
Then there's no reason for there to be any anti-government sentiment at all.
Have you read this report? Because that's the exact wording they use: anti-government or anti-authority sentiment. Saying that's...
Oh, no, that's amazing. I have not read this article.
That's
no.
coming next in the next paragraph.
Sorry,
actually.
man. I
No,
didn't mean to steal your thunder.
You didn't steal my thunder. That's in the report. There's more coming up here. It's Free Talk Live.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover brings her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. The LRN.FM's social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
Marking a milestone in history. I'm Roger Stern, Fox News. With Juneteenth now a national holiday, folks around the nation are commemorating today's anniversary of the end of slavery in the U.S. South Carolina Democratic Congressman Jim Clyburn talking about its importance on Fox News Live.
I think the time has now come for us to use this as a day that we began to talk with each other and help pursue happiness in a way that everybody can feel a part of this great nation.
Folks were given the day off yesterday because this year the holiday falls on a Saturday. President Biden declared the national holiday this week. A rising star in the Republican Party is getting ready to address the Faith and Freedom Coalition Conference in Orlando. Fox's Mark Meredith with that.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has become a household name nationally, especially after the way he handled the state's lockdowns compared to some of the other states around the country. It'll be interesting to see what kind of reception he gets when he speaks to a few thousand religious conservatives. Now, DeSantis, he's got his own gubernatorial race to deal with first. He's up for re-election next year. Officials with the Republican National Committee tell Fox News, though, that his stock really continues to rise within their party. The RNC also believing that voters may embrace more Republican governors on the national stage. On Friday, the crowd heard from somebody else who may be a potential candidate in 2024, former Vice President Mike Pence.
But Pence was booed. People are angry that he went along with certifying the election of President Biden. The driver of a pickup truck is in critical but stable condition. He was shot by police after hitting a group of bicyclists during a race in Show Low, Arizona, and then trying to flee. 2 cyclists are in critical condition, 4 others critical but stable. America is listening to Fox News.
If your time on the golf course is fueled by the pursuit of better, you're not alone. Peter Millar believes innovation in performance apparel is never-ending. This season, Peter Millar has changed the game with UPF 50+ sun protection in their performance polos and sport shirts. Whether you're teeing up or heading to town, get ready for the height of summer with Peter Millar's lightweight sun protection apparel. Explore their sun protection styles today at petermillar.com. Enjoy free shipping, effortless returns, and a complimentary gift with your purchase at petermillar.com/Fox News. petermillar.com/Fox News.
No surprise in today's presidential election in Iran. Fox's Ryan Chilcote watching the results.
Election critics will tell you that Ibrahim Raisi, who won the vote, that this election was effectively designed for him to win. That actually the result reflects more of a coronation of his candidacy than the outcome of some really hard fought contest after his strongest would-be competitors, reformists and supporters of the outgoing president, were disqualified.
The new president has been sanctioned by the U.S. for his ties to assassinations. President Biden scheduled a meeting this month with Israel's President Reuven Rivlin. Rivlin helped oversee the process in which an opposition leader in the Israeli parliament formed a new government to unseat longtime Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Police in Oregon still looking for the suspect in the killings of 3 people after a hit-and-run crash near a casino and a shooting at a marijuana dispensary. A manhunt yesterday failed to find the man. He's considered armed and dangerous. In Britain, heavy metal is back, but a returning festival is about more than the music. Fox's Karen McHugh has that.
Call them heavy metal guinea pigs. In the first event of its kind since the coronavirus struck Great Britain, thousands of hard-rocking metal fans have descended on Donington Park in central England for the 3-day Download Fest.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with agristhosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agrist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to agristhosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's agristhosting.com.
After logging onto the Xbox One game console at one of his classmates' homes, 12-year-old Michael Cutler admitted to reporters this week that he really does not have the slightest clue about what his friend's name could be.
I mean, his name might be Brian. No, wait, Brian's my other friend, the one with the PS4. Yeah, if I'm being totally honest, there's no way I can tell you his name. Not a chance.
Noting that the boy had, quote, an absolutely huge HD TV and a bunch of games his mom won't let him play, Cutler confirmed that he could recall only the faintest details about his friend, including the fact that his mother makes chocolate chip cookies and that he has a dog of some kind.
He's got Killer Instinct, Assassin's Creed, Battlefield 4, and Titanfall? Man, that game's awesome. Anyway, I've just been calling him Flamethrower because that's his gamer tag. Hopefully he doesn't catch on. Hey, can I stick around for a few more hours? I'm so close to beating this.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. We're kicking off the second hour of the program. You can join us here, 202-380-3699. Ready to snitch out your friends and your family? I bet they're going to pay you.
For fun and profit.
Yes. The federal government is rolling out whatever the hell program to encourage people to tell on their loved ones.
I've talked about this, I think maybe yesterday or on a previous episode, but when empires enter sort of the downside of their time, and it's a different cycle, different length of time for every empire. But generally speaking, they tend to begin to consume themselves in some way, shape, or form.
Could they hurry up, please?
Well, I see that this is what they're, targeting people within the United States of America who exercise the rights of things like free speech, for example, is definitely a sign of the empire in decline.
And of course, they're using the January 6th event in Washington, D.C. at the Capitol building.
Yeah, they don't use like riots and the burning of like police stations or anything like that. They use what could be called, I don't even know, a quiet riot, if you will. I don't know what to call it. It was like, and like I was reading something else.
The least dangerous revolution ever.
I was reading something else too,
the
where
unarmed coup,
where they were doing some research on how people got into the buildings and that kind of a thing.
Oh yeah,
they're
still
saying
won't release the footage.
Yeah, they're saying that it was plants. It was FBI, right?
Oh,
Who
yeah.
like basically let people in.
Well, I remember seeing footage from the outside of cops just letting people in the one of the side doors.
I was watching somebody's live stream YouTube who was there, and in the comments, the YouTube streamer himself was saying, "You guys, this thing was done by old men with canes. Like old men with canes were the ones, sort of leading, the way for the rest of everybody to get in there. There's no way that this is anything, like a riot or a coup or anything
people were
like that."
walking when they got into the building. They were like staying within the lines. They weren't crossing over the, easy to cross. Whatever the hell you call them, those rope barricades.
All right, everyone, tour guide rules.
I mean, it was the most unthreatening situation. The only threats were really coming from the federal agents who were in there shooting people.
Well,
to
yeah,
death.
that's where the only bloodshed came from.
Well, and it was pointed out to me that can you think of a single day during the months and months of riots that we had where places are getting burnt down, people are getting killed? Can you think of a single day of that where like, oh, we point at that day and we just keep going over what happened that day? I can't.
No, I don't.
I mean, we had months of this, and that's actual harm to actual people and their property. But there's no single event that we keep pointing out to that. And then you have this, where, the only person I'm aware died. So, like, there was a policeman that died suspiciously.
Later.
Who they reported, oh, yeah, he got beaten to death with a fire extinguisher. Not even remotely true, just zero truth to it. And that came out quietly later. Oh, and the lady who got shot.
Right.
The protester.
Yeah.
Well, what they're trying to do, of course, is make that date into something, akin to 9/11. Remember the day, January. What is it?
I don't think that's the right comparison at all. I think what they're trying to make this is the Reichstag, like the burning of the Reichstag.
Well, okay, sure, but in defense of my analogy, to make it something akin to 9/11 is if you just look at the way everybody treats 9/11 now, as, and I'm not saying those events weren't horrible, but I'm just saying they're trying to use that as
It's
the
their
template.
springboard.
It's their springboard because they have a formula in which they use the media to, make these sentiments, right? Everybody's watching the TV.
The veneration, the collective sorrow.
Right.
That we really got to change our civilization to make sure that this doesn't happen again.
Right. And they're following that template.
Glenn Greenwald's
That's
report on their report. So the U.S. federal government, various different agencies have come together for their Domestic Violent Extremism Poses Heightened Threat in 2021 report from all these different federal, FBI, CIA, DIA, DHS, sort of a joint task force. According to Greenwald, the U.S. security state apparatus regards the agenda of domestic violent extremists as, quote, derived from anti-government or anti-authority sentiment, unquote, which includes, quote, opposition to perceived economic, racial, or social hierarchies.
So, like, all the skateboarders out there are going to be targets.
Oh, so we're good then.
All the punk rockers.
So we're in the clear because our issue is perceived and real political hierarchies. Like, the class that we're concerned with isn't economic class, and it's not racial minority or anything like that. It's you have this political clout that lets you get away with murder, and we don't.
I don't think we're going to be good. I don't think their interpretation is going to be the same as yours. In sum, to the Department of Homeland Security, an extremist is anyone who opposes the current prevailing ruling class and system for distributing power. Anyone they believe is prepared to use violence, intimidation, or coercion in pursuit of these causes then becomes a domestic violence extremist subject to a vast array of surveillance, monitoring, and other forms of restriction.
Isn't that like a paraphrased speech out of like Star Wars? Isn't that like something the emperor said about, how he's going to rule over the universe or whatever? And that's what the Rebel Alliance was like opposing, was their supreme rule over the universe?
It goes without saying, says Greenwald, that violence of any kind, including that which is politically motivated, is a serious crime under U.S. law, and it's the proper role of the U.S. government to investigate and prevent it. But there are real and important legal and institutional limits on the authority of the intelligence community to involve itself in domestic law enforcement or other forms of domestic political activity that seem threatened here, if not outright violated. In particular, the report's acknowledgement that it was compiled by institutions including Department of Homeland Security, with contributions by the CIA and the Defense Intelligence Agency, has alarmed numerous members of the House Intelligence Committee. Recently, all 10 members of the House Intelligence Committee wrote a previously unreported letter to the National Director of Intelligence to, quote, raise serious concerns about the production of this document by the intelligence community and to seek clarification on the facts related to its production. So even some of the, political people are acting upset about this.
For our listeners who might not be taking in all of the verboseness of what the government is saying here, let me summarize it for you.
Thank you, yeah.
Support the state or else.
That's right. Or you'll be investigated.
Or else.
And when they investigate you, they like to find something, even if they have to cook it up.
Ain't that the truth?
Among the issues raised with the DHS report was not subject to the standard rigors of the normal intelligence community findings, yet continuously makes sweeping claims that it prefixes with the authoritative phrase, the IC, intelligence community, assesses. The committee members found this to be misleading, adding that we urge you to clarify which elements in the IC concurred with this judgment and the intelligence basis, if any, for the concurrence. And I don't think it matters, though. The intelligence community does whatever they want to do, and these are just some representatives or whatever sitting up there saying, you are out of line, intelligence community. We say you need to do these things better.
That is affirmative.
And then, here we are 3 months later, and now they're rolling out, public announcements of saying they're going to encourage people to turn in their friends and their family members and coworkers if they have suspicions about them.
This is so, it is literally eating itself. The state is going to eat itself. Who is the largest committer of atrocities amongst the citizenry of the United States of America?
The government.
Yeah.
That's right. Yes, in all of its different forms. You put all that together and you go, how many murders, how many deaths, how many rapes have occurred as a result of the real domestic terrorism is occurring as a result of the state.
Well, I mean, I hear that they have their agents placed on the roadways just ready to extract your money from you. I mean, that's the little thing that we expect them to do every day to us, let alone when they get together and form a project like this, where, I mean, it sounds like the FBI is going, we need to be more like the CIA.
And of course, the CIA isn't supposed to get involved in domestic activities, but yet they're part of this particular report. Greenwald has some thoughts on that. You're welcome to share yours with us at 202-380-3699. You're ready to snitch out your friends and family? If you're a snitch, give us a call. We want to hear from you. It's Free Talk Live.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
A newly recruited search and rescue officer, Marshall Hunter was resigned to a life of rescuing wayward spacefarers and derelict satellites. But when a billionaire couple goes missing, his own ship is disabled during the rescue. With communication satellites suddenly failing and lunar mineral shipments disappearing in transit, the crew suspects it's more than a coincidence, and Hunter must choose between salvation and sacrifice to save his crewmates and their civilian charges. Frontier by Patrick Childs and BingBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com. We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191. Are you a cryptocurrency advocate? The Crypto Tip is the ideal outreach tool to help new people discover cryptocurrency. It's a printable business card-sized tip that you can give to service providers, preferably in addition to a good cash tip. When the server scans the QR code, it'll bring up an explanation of cryptocurrency, how to install a wallet, and allow them to claim the tip. If they don't claim the crypto, you get your tip refunded to you after a time period you specify. Plus, if they do claim the tip, you get an email alert. Create as many tips as you want at cryptotip.org. That's cryptotip.org.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. You can dial and join us here, I hope. We may be having some phone difficulties.
It's technicalties.
Yeah, thank you for
It's
that.
all one word now. It's not technical difficulties. It's a portmanteau. It's technicalties.
We are hopefully going to be able to resolve that when we get a chance, so bear with us. The number is 202-380-3699. And if you want to learn about how to call in on our SIP lines, you can do that over at freetalklive.com. It's the latest news piece posted there to the website, so check that out too. In the studio tonight, you've got Ian.
Peakless Mountaineer.
And the captain.
We continue with this story, Glenn Greenwald, who you may remember Glenn's name. He was the guy that broke the Edward Snowden story. And believe it or not, that was 8 years ago. When that happened. It was 2013, the summer of 2013, when Ed Snowden story broke. It was Glenn Greenwald who really helped propel the Snowden story out there into the mainstream. Since then, he co-founded The Intercept, which was a site that, again, he was the co-founder of. The idea was he was leaving The Guardian, who he'd been working for in the UK. Mm-hmm. He, I believe, lives in South America. And The Intercept was sort of his platform for a while where he could, have more freedom to report on the things he wanted to. The Intercept ended up getting taken over somehow by whoever it was that, he
was it
brought
one of
on
these
board.
hostile takeovers?
I don't think it was hostile
one of these
up
corporate
front.
things.
It didn't seem hostile, I don't think, to him, but later became that way. And he ended up being told how he could write and what he could write about and that kind of thing by his own company, basically. And he said, well, this isn't working out. And he took a walk. And he's now joined a website called Substack.com where he can blog with some relative freedom, I believe.
A lot of folks are up on there now.
Apparently, that's like the place to be for decent journalism.
Peter I can't pronounce it. Quinones? He's up on Substack.
I heard Ed Snowden started there recently as well.
Yeah, there's I can't remember all of the people, but I've run across articles preparing for the show, and the frequency of them occurring on Substack is like through the roof.
Yeah, and I don't know how long this one's going to last, but my understanding of the way this site works is that you can actually subscribe to your favorite reporter, and you can get their reports for free. I mean, I'm sure they have a paid tier as well, but the idea is if you like it, you can then subscribe with money and directly benefit your favorite reporters. I'm sure the website is taking a fee off the top of that. So there's still an intermediary. There's still someone in between the reporters and the the readers. But nonetheless, it seems like these guys are pretty happy with it. So
I love the concept.
Yeah,
the further decentralization of these things, of all these, particularly reporting. Right, I think may bring back some journalistic integrity that seems to be sorely lacking.
Let's see if they can withstand the pressure that they will inevitably get from the corporate government.
By the way, Bitcoin.com, also another great place to go to get some independent reporting. They've got a news website called news.bitcoin.com. You want to find out what's going on in the world of cryptocurrency, news.bitcoin.com has it, and they've got it updated every single day. They're not just covering Bitcoin, they're covering wider than that, just cryptocurrency in general. Check it out at news.bitcoin.com. If, however, you are brand new to crypto, brand new to Bitcoin, take the time to go and learn about it over at bitcoin.com. So just go to the normal bitcoin.com site. You click Get Started at the top of the page. You'll find some introductory material that will hopefully help you be able to wrap your mind around some of the new concepts that are being introduced to the world of finance with cryptocurrency like Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash. So we will be checking on the phones here in a little bit. I hopefully they're going to start working again. 202-380-3699. We've got calls on hold, but I haven't been able to successfully screen them yet. So I don't think I can actually put them on the air. We'll get to that. But for now, I want to continue with Greenwald's assessment here. This fear-mongering story that was in the news, continues to come back into the news about the Department of Homeland Security rolling out a snitch program, which, presumably they've been doing the whole time. Because remember, they were talking about domestic violence, domestic so-called extremists a decade ago under the Barack Obama administration. So it's not like this is that new as far as what the government is doing, but it is another focus on this, right? So they're letting people know that this is something that they're looking at. And according to their report that they filed back in March, they're looking at people on the left and the right. They specifically cite Antifa, animal rights, environmental activists, pro-choice so-called extremists, and anarchists. as people that they're looking at, quote, those who oppose capitalism and all forms of globalization, and people on the right, including sovereign citizens, anti-abortion activists, and those deemed motivated by racial or ethnic hatreds as just some of the people that they're going to be investigating and or are investigating. Anyone with derived from, with their viewpoints derived from anti-government or anti-authority sentiment, or opposed to perceived economic, racial, or social hierarchies. This is some wording from the government report. Now, as Greenwald points out later in his piece, he says involvement of the intelligence community in the domestic activities of U.S. citizens is one of the most dangerous breaches of civil liberties and democratic order that the U.S. government can perpetrate. It was after World War II when the CIA, the NSA, and other state security agencies that wield immense and unlimited powers in the dark were created in the name of fighting the Cold War. Legal and institutional prohibitions on wielding that massive machinery against the American public were central to the always dubious claim that the security behemoth that operates completely in the dark was compatible with democracy. So it was the fear of the Red Scare, of the fear of communism, that was their excuse for creating these agencies that are now turning their focus on the American people directly, instead of just, the Russians or whatever. As the ACLU noted, quote, in its 1947 charter, the CIA was prohibited from spying against Americans, in part because President Truman was afraid that the agency would engage in political abuse.
Oh my gosh. Which, of course, is exactly what's happening.
Well, now, political abuse could just simply mean that he was afraid that they would spy on his friends, right? Like that they would start amassing files on the politicians. So that was they weren't really concerned with the rest of the American people. They were only concerned with themselves.
Yeah,
well, in these days, it depends on which politicians, because there's some politicians you're allowed to spy on because they're not in the VIP section.
If you think for a minute that there isn't spying going on amongst politicians, I think that would be very short-sighted.
Mm-hmm.
Since that time, Truman's fear has been realized over and over. Some of the worst post-World War II civil liberties abuses have been the result of breaches by the CIA and other agencies of this prohibition. The whole Ed Snowden thing was all about the NSA spying on Americans in violation of these prohibitions. As the ACLU documented, the CIA in the 1960s was caught infiltrating and manipulating numerous domestic political activist groups. Under the auspices of the War on Terror, entire new bureaucracies, such as the Department of Homeland Security, and new legal regimes like the Patriot Act or the FISA Amendments Act, were designed to erode these long-standing limitations by dramatically increasing surveillance powers aimed at U.S. citizens. And by design, the infiltration of these security state agencies in U.S. domestic politics has dramatically escalated.
Ain't that the truth?
So, we can continue. Your calls, your thoughts, welcome. Also, on the way, Captain, you've got nonconformity quotes.
Is that a disease?
That you can share with us. And I just feel like that would tie in really well with a story about people not appreciating governments ramming their opinions down our throats. How can we non-conform better? We'll talk about that on the way here, and you can share your thoughts with us. 202-380-3699. It's Free Talk Live.
On March 16th this year, government task forces violently raided the New Hampshire Bitcoin Embassy, the Mighty Moose Mart, the homes of Aria DiMezzo, Andy and Renee Spinella, Colleen Fordham, a grandmother, and perhaps most relevant, the studios of Free Talk Live. The Crypto Six were arrested. 4 were released on bail conditions, but Ian Freeman was held hostage for 69 days. Rich Paul, also known as Nobody, remains captive. We've consulted attorneys who say no crime even appears to have been committed, but that didn't stop the Joint Thug Task Force from ripping out wires from our broadcast stacks, taking Free Talk Live off the air, resulting in a violation of our and your First Amendment rights. You can visit thecrypto6.com to help, but as importantly, contact other media and tell them about this outrage. This case is likely to set precedent for cryptocurrency use well into your future. Help our fight for liberty and financial freedom at thecrypto6.com.
Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 28th through July 4th for ForkFest 2021 at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. ForkFest happens the week after the Porcupine Freedom Festival, and ForkFest is decentralized, which means no one is in charge. That also means there's no ticket cost. Just reserve your camping, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 28th through July 4th. Where better to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving activists in the Shire? You can relax and enjoy the camaraderie of like-minded people, or you can create whatever experience or event you'd like others to have. If you're planning an event for ForkFest, be sure to let others know in advance. You can connect with fellow ForkFesters via the unofficial Telegram chat or the ForkFest forum. Links to those are on the unofficial website, forkfest.party. Mark your calendar for June 28th through July 4th, 2021. We'll see you at forkfest.party.
Breaking weather news. Belize is sunny and around 82 degrees every day this week.
What's the forecast for your life? If current politics and economic prospects are cramping your freedom, escape to the tropics. ECI Development has affordable second homes for you to own or rent in Belize and other tropical countries. Places with stable governments and growing economies. Secure your freedom now. To find out more, send an email to ftl@ecidevelopment.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
A congressman recently revealed that legislation totaling 2,900 pages and involving more than $1 trillion was available to members of Congress for less than 48 hours to study and consider. That's over 60 pages of legislation per hour. Do you think anyone read the entire bill? I'm Jim Babka with DownsizeDC.org. Consider a proposal buried in a 3,200-page, $388 billion bill, which would have empowered committee chairmen or their agents to examine Americans' tax returns. When this horrible provision came to light, no one claimed to know how it got into the bill. One congressman questioned said, "I didn't write it, I didn't approve it, I wasn't even consulted." If your attorney represented you this way, he might be disbarred. But this is how Congress represents you every day. That's why DownsizeDC.org has created the Read the Bills Act. You can force Congress to read their bills before they pass them at DownsizeDC.org.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. Our phones are working now. We think. At least I could talk to the last caller that called in. So we had a bunch of people waiting. I had to unplug the phone box and then plug it back in. So.
We'll do it live.
So I apologize to everybody who has not been able to get through tonight. I suspect that's been more than a handful of people because normally Saturdays are our busiest
What's the
nights.
number, Ian?
It's 202-380-3699. That's 202-380-3699. Tonight with you, it's Ian.
Bigless Mountaineer.
And some guy.
And we're going to go to your calls and thoughts. Of course, you can bring up whatever's on your mind, though we've been talking about so-called domestic extremism and the federal government and all of its domestic and foreign policing agencies, including the CIA.
I was thinking about, because you were reading and they were talking about domestic violence.
Mm-hmm.
And like that term to me has classically meant like problems in the home.
Yeah, somebody beating
their
wife or husband.
or something like that. Yeah. And so now it has a different meaning. And I wonder if in classic government form, if those two things will ever like sort of come to a head where both of those definitions.
Well, you see, by being born in this geographical area, you were instantaneously wedded into an abusive relationship.
It's true.
That you cannot leave.
Let's go to your calls and thoughts. Raul is on the line, calling from a bunker somewhere. Raul, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hey, thanks for taking my call, guys.
Yes, sir. Thanks for making it.
My disclaimer is that according to the media, I'm practicing my white privilege. I have freckles, if that should explain it. But yeah, I want to chime in on this whole thing. I'm interested in where this all stems from. My theory is that a lot of the people that were in college during the Vietnam War were so pissed off and got to the point to where they hate this country so much, they inserted themselves into the government agencies, local, state, and federal, and because they hate this country, they're doing everything they can to destroy it. I think this is something that they've been planning for a long time, and now we're starting to see the fruit.
They who?
Well, anybody who hates this country and inserted themselves into the federal government, state governments, meaning in positions they gained power or authority. In various agencies,
Do you think it's just possible that the organization type known as government is the problem? Do you think that's possible?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
no question about it.
If by destroy this country you mean like hollow out the middle class and basically disempower all of the citizenry, yeah, absolutely. They need us as powerless as possible. Otherwise, we don't need them. We don't need their government programs. We don't need their protection. All of that.
Well, whoever they are, they definitely love the government. I mean, however they feel about the country,
right.
They definitely love control. They love taxes. They love obedience. And whether they be Republican or Democrat, they're all of the same ilk.
Well, anyways, that was my point. I think that's where it stems from. I just wanted to get your
Thanks,
thoughts on
Raul. I appreciate your call tonight, man. Thanks for making it. Let's continue here. 202.
Yeah, I think it's definitely deeper than just the Vietnam War. Like this isn't a single event thing.
202-380-3699. I'm just going to go unscreened here to this caller. Caller, you're on the air on Free Talk Live. I'm hoping things are working. Hello?
You mean me?
Yeah, you're on the air.
Me?
What's your name?
Okay, I just wanted to say.
Oh, it's Robert.
Yes, you can have
Robert in South Carolina. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, I just wanted to say that yes, you can have people of all political persuasions that come in and want to change things in their direction, and that could be, and they could run from A to Z, from extreme conservatives to communist revolutionaries.
David, I'm glad you said that. Robert, I'm sorry. I'm glad you said that because one of the greatest illustrations, I don't remember who gave it to me, that I've ever heard about government is think of government as a gun or a weapon, if you will, any kind of weapon. It doesn't matter. And all people try to do with it is gain control of it. And then when they gain control of it, they try and point it at whoever they don't like. And so it all depends on who has control of it at any given moment. And that's why I believe, of course, that the organization type known as government is the problem.
Well, yes, the problem is, though, you need a government. My grandfather once said to me...
No, you don't.
Why do I need one?
Well, you do need somebody to keep everything under control, because otherwise, if you didn't have police, you'd have gangs of people. Absolutely, you'd have gangs like in the 1930s, where you had
there were police in the 1930s.
Yeah, I don't know if you've noticed, but even with the police, there are gangs of people, including the police. I count them as the most prolific gang out there. I'm much more likely to be waylaid by a man with a badge and a gun than I am a Crip or a Blood.
That's right. But on the other hand, if there weren't the man with a badge and a gun, all of the Crips and those kinds of groups are not responsible to us whatsoever.
Well, actually, that would be great, because if it was actually a Crip or a Blood that tries to waylay you, you could actually fight back against that person. And then most people looking at that situation would say, oh, well, he was fighting against a known gang member. I mean, obviously, that was a legitimate thing to do. But if you try to fight back against the police, people look at that and they say, oh, the police, they're our heroes. They're the ones out there protecting us. You can't fight back against them, even though they're doing the exact same thing in many cases.
We have many systems built into our system in order to prevent corrupt policemen.
Well, it's failing.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
At all levels, it's failing, from the local to the state to the federal level. It is not stopping corruption at all.
But they're a necessary evil. The only thing.
No evil is necessary, David.
Yep.
Thank
you for the call. So 202-380-3699. Well, I mean, so what do you guys think, though, about that idea that a little bit of evil is needed to protect from even more evil?
Evil's not necessary,
even
period.
If that were true, which it isn't, but if that were true, then okay, just look at what happens when you give them the space for a little bit of evil. Like, This country was perfectly set up at its foundation to maintain minarchy. It was the perfect
It's a small
experiment.
government, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
a small government, that only watches over these certain things like defense and that sort of thing, and keeping the court systems. Like, this was the perfect scenario. I mean, we were oceans away from everybody else. We had allies to the north and south. I mean, this was the perfect setup. We had come up with a brand new technology for how to really rein this in by writing down what they can and cannot do.
Mm-hmm.
And we are now the largest government ever
in the history of planet Earth.
And with more people imprisoned, I believe, than pretty much any other
time in Earth's history.
Yeah. Many of whom are there for nonviolent, victimless crimes, like having or selling drugs, for instance. So there's a ton of people behind bars in this country that have become victims of the police. And of course, there's also the 1,000+ people a year that are actually killed by the police in the United States. And other countries' policing agencies don't even come close in a lot of cases to those numbers. Certainly Western countries.
People like Robert haven't thought it through. And if they have, they're stuck in this circular argument.
And frankly, you get better service out of every other form of organized crime than you do out of government.
Oh, yeah. Organized crime might actually deliver on what they promised to you for extorting you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they might actually protect you.
Yeah, if they're like, "Hey, we'll protect you from the street gangs if you pay us, and then you don't pay and they come and bust your kneecaps or whatever." But if you pay, they might actually provide you some level of protection, whereas the police don't care. Yeah, and if they do, it's only of their own accord. It is not because they are a policeman. It has been ruled time and time again by the Supreme Court, both at the local level and the federal level, including the military, that none of these people, cops, all of them, have any obligation to protect citizens.
That's right.
None. No obligation at all, period.
If they do happen to protect you, it's just because you got lucky.
Yeah.
In that particular
case. They're feeling generous.
Yeah. They don't have to protect you. They don't have to tell you the truth. I mean, honestly, we'd be better off if we had a competition in crime than this monopoly of crime.
Yeah, and that's kind of an interesting road to go down, to think of like a thought experiment of what could things be like if we didn't have monopoly policing. What if we actually had the ability to choose who our protection service providers are? Like here in Keene, New Hampshire, you can actually choose your garbage company.
Mm-hmm.
Where I come from, there's no such option.
Well, and I mean, at the founding of this country, everyone was in the militia. And now, being part of a militia makes you a terrorist.
That's right. According to the U.S. federal government, they're certainly looking at militias. They're also looking at Antifa and anybody else that they don't think respects their authority. This is Free Talk Live, 202-380-3699. The phones appear to be working. Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here, and I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover springs her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com.
Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. Physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, and you can join us here. Our phones are working, 202-380-3699. I don't think they were working right for the first half of the show, but hey, better late than never. So we'll take your calls, your thoughts. They're welcome about whatever's on your mind. You don't have to call about so-called domestic extremism and whatever it is the federal government is cooking up to try to continue to expand that definition and make it so they can put their nose into your life even deeper than they ever have. You can comment on that or bring up whatever's on your mind. Coming up, Captain, you've got 21 nonconformity quotes. If you want to throw one in,
I do actually.
Feel free.
This one is.
And where's this from? Sorry.
Well, this is from FEE.org. It's
Foundation for Economic Education.
Yes. The first one is, the individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. If you try it, you will be lonely often and sometimes frightened, but no price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself. This is from Rudyard Kipling in 1935.
I have a tip, though. You don't have to be lonely if you move to New Hampshire. Then you're surrounded by people that are like-minded. People in most of the cities in New Hampshire exist who actually do care about freedom and get together and work towards it on a regular basis. So you no longer have to be lonely if you don't want to.
And that's always an important part of maintaining sanity, is that you have other sane people around you.
Yeah, that helps.
And I mean, the fact is that this is a form of insanity that is just very, very common. So it's hard to get that reinforcement from your community. Whereas if you move out to here, like, no, we will reinforce that, yes, your individuality is important.
I was thinking to myself, if I have anti-government sentiment and I go travel to the north end of New Hampshire where it borders with Canada, and I'm standing on the New Hampshire side, and I decide to step over to the Canadian side, does that make me a foreign terrorist?
I think it.
I step back over to New Hampshire, then I'm a domestic terrorist, and then I step over again, I'm a foreign terrorist?
Good question.
Do you lose your domestic terrorist status by being in Canada?
Right.
Because Canada doesn't consider you a terrorist yet?
Right.
Good question.
Yeah, I actually did go to Canada, or attempted to go to Canada. Technically, I was within their border. In 2015, we were at the Porcupine Freedom Festival, and we did an event called Run for the Border, where a bunch of us, 5 of us, went up, and we were going to actually walk across the Canadian border in the town of Derby Line, Vermont, which actually has the border crossed through its library. Which is kind of an interesting little, fact.
Wow.
That you can go and you can see this line in the library, which we couldn't do because it turns out it was a Canadian holiday and the library was closed. We had no idea. But there's plenty of photos of it. You can go online and check it out. But
Darn
also,
you, Boxing Day.
Yeah, we went through. It was something else named
You're
after
just
some
as
guy.
hard to predict as Arbor Day.
But we went through the town anyway, and it was interesting because you could see the other on the other side there's Stansted, which is the town on the Canadian side. And prior to 9/11, there used to be regular traffic between the towns. There was no checkpoint or anything like that. It was just a normal thing. If you wanted to go to the library from Stansted, you just went to the library, and you can still do that. They still allow people to walk along one sidewalk coming from Stansted and enter into the front door of the library, which is on the U.S. side of the library. And they're watching constantly from video camera devices across the street. So they're tracking who goes into the library. And if you're from Canada and you go into the library, and then when you leave the library, you don't go immediately back to Canada, they will send Border Patrol agents against you.
I detect a Mission Impossible kind of thing where a guy, goes in and he's wearing, blue jeans and a T-shirt and a hat, and then he changes clothes. He's got a trench coat and wearing shorts or whatever. I don't know.
I suspect that's been tried.
I suspect it has.
So they will let you cross the border while you're in the library, though, as long as you leave.
That's
by
correct.
the wow.
Yeah. Well, you have to cross the border to get.
Remarkably generous.
If
of
you're
them.
from Canada, you have to cross the border to get into the library. If you're in the library from the U.S. side, you have the ability to go into the back of the library where you're on the Canadian side without any kind of issue, as long as you don't run out the back door or something like that. So
Domestic terrorist?
It's really an interesting place. They've got potted plants in the road, just blocking off one of the roadways that are apparently filled with concrete. Those didn't exist 20 years ago.
Right.
People could just drive back and forth, and the town, as a result, is dead. It is economically depressed. There's nothing going on. I mean, we were there on a holiday, but you could tell the number of storefronts in downtown, half of them were empty.
Well, I'm sure as soon as this Second World War is over, then we'll go back to not having passports.
Yeah, right. You're referencing the beginning of the passport, which was in the World War II when they started that.
There are countries in Europe where they have that, except it's like a restaurant, and it's no big deal. Where the border runs through the middle of a restaurant, and so you can go and have lunch or whatever, and you can Peakless is sitting on the other countryside, and I'm sitting on this countryside, and if we get up and do musical chairs, we can both be in different countries while we're having lunch together.
Well, it used to be a little easier to pass between European countries, but now they've got a COVID passport that they're going to start requiring. That's a whole other news story. But let's go to Sam. He's on the line in Delaware, listening to WDOV. Sam, you're on Free Talk Live. Sam, in Delaware.
You press the button.
I did press the button.
Oh, I see it.
Sam going once, Sam going twice. Well,
Sammy.
We'll put him back on hold. Maybe we'll see what happened to his line there. Our number is 202-380-3699. So we were talking about this story here from Glenn Greenwald, looking at the CIA, the NSA, the DIA, all kinds of agencies in the federal government that supposedly are supposed to do outside the United States investigations. But they seem to keep turning their focus inward in violation of various different, prohibitions on that sort of thing. He points out later in his story, as I've been repeatedly noting over the last 2 months, the Biden administration, along with leading Democrats such as Adam Schiff from California, have been stating explicitly that one of their top priorities is the adoption of new laws designed to import the Bush-Cheney-Obama war on terror onto U.S. soil for domestic purposes. As recently as February 14th, the Washington Post, under the headline, quote, and by the way, this story was written in March, The agency founded because of 9/11 is shifting to face the threat of domestic terrorism, noted Benny Thompson, a representative from Mississippi, chairman of the House Homeland Security Committee, is now demanding that Homeland Security resources be redirected towards domestic extremists. And, quote, lawmakers of both parties spoke favorably of new legislation to specifically address domestic terrorism. Now, he makes an interesting point here. He says no one from the Biden administration or the congressional members demanding the new domestic terrorism laws can identify any activities that are not now criminal that they believe ought to be, right? Like, bombing somewhere, threatening people, shooting people, plotting to destroy a building. All these things are illegal already.
Right.
Unless it's to permit intelligence agencies to start policing constitutionally protected speech and associational activities among U.S. citizens, why are any new laws needed?
I mean, that's a great question. Why are any new laws needed, period? Even without the whole lead into that with the article and the discussion that we've been having tonight, why are any new laws necessary? Everything that you could possibly construe as bad is already outlawed. Illegal.
Yeah. Well, obviously we need new laws or else we wouldn't have so many legislators.
They do seem to feel like that's their job, right?
I mean, if we just kept the laws that we have and started, enforcing those, we might get the idea that we don't need these people.
Unless it is to empower them to escalate their already aggressive use of war on terror tactics against U.S. citizens, what do they want security state agencies to be able to do on U.S. soil that they can't already do?
I mean, are there things that they can't do?
That's the question.
It sounds to me like the empire is sad that it has ruled over most of the world in one way, shape, or form, in the form of hundreds of military bases, in the form of military coups inserting their chosen leaders into regimes where it benefits the empire. It sounds to me like they're just sad that they don't have anything to do because their rule is so omnipotent.
And they've got plenty to keep them busy already, and a lot of it they're ginning up. A lot of it they're creating.
Right, but I'm just saying that now they're like, well, we're so bored, I guess we'll have to turn some regular folks into domestic terrorists.
Hey,
we'll go arrest some Bitcoiners.
Does this mean we're about to get federal funding?
Who's we?
Well, the domestic terrorists, obviously.
Well, that's right.
The usual pattern is that, right before they start going after a group, they, give them a bunch of money and guns and training and stuff.
Right.
I mean, that's pretty much standard practice for the last 50 years or so.
If they drop a cargo container on my property full of guns or something, I'll let you guys know.
202-380-3699. We got open phones for you. If you want to join us here, you can bring up whatever's on your mind. Also, more from the captain. He's got more nonconformity quotes. I want to get another one coming back here, Captain, in hour number 3 on this live Saturday edition of Free Talk Live. Of course, you can take control of the airwaves. Are you ready for the domestic terror crackdown? They're plotting one right now. What's it going to look like? It's going to be ugly. We're coming up.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it. Bitcoin.com has launched a trading platform at local.bitcoin.com, allowing you to buy or sell Bitcoin Cash via dozens of payment methods like PayPal, Venmo, bank deposit, remittances, or meeting in person with cash. There are no ID requirements to sign up for and use the site, and all communications between buyers and sellers are encrypted. Finally, a global trading platform that respects your privacy. Visit local.bitcoin.com to get started trading Bitcoin Cash. local.bitcoin.com. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
The western U.S. is still baking. I'm Roger Stern, Fox News. Mother Nature has the heat turned up high over a part of the U.S., and Fox Weather's Rick Reichmuth says cooler air is a ways away.
Incredible heat all out across parts of the West. Got to 119 in Palm Springs, 117 in Phoenix, 113 in Vegas. 117 is your all-time ever high temperature in Vegas. You get the idea. It's really hot there. We've got another couple really hot days to get through here. We've got excessive heat warnings in place, and that is especially across parts of the Arizona, but now across areas of Utah, much in Nevada and into California.
For folks along the northern Gulf Coast, a different problem, rain and wind. What had been Tropical Storm Gabriel made land today.
Sustained winds were clocked at 45 miles per hour. Really, the primary concern is not so much wind, but water.
Fox's Jonathan Seri. Gabriel is now a tropical depression. It's believed to have spawned a tornado which destroyed or heavily damaged at least 50 homes in Alabama. According to court documents, a 7-year-old Dallas girl killed allegedly by her mother was stabbed more than 30 times. 23-year-old Troy Shea Hall faces capital murder charges. She's also charged with stabbing a Good Samaritan who tried to take the knife away. The nation is celebrating Juneteenth, the day marking the emancipation of the final slaves in the U.S. Fox's Aisha Hosni is watching the celebrations in Harlem.
Now, there's live performances here tonight. There's food vendors, games for kids, celebrations really taking place all across New York City and across the country today. Hundreds of people took part in a Juneteenth walk in Dallas today.
This week, President Biden declared Juneteenth a national holiday for the first time. America is listening to Fox News.
If your time on the golf course is fueled by the pursuit of better, you're not alone. Peter Millar believes innovation in performance apparel is never-ending. This season, Peter Millar has changed the game with UPF 50+ sun protection in their performance polos and sport shirts. Whether you're teeing up or heading to town, get ready for the height of summer with Peter Millar's lightweight sun protection apparel. Explore their sun protection styles today at petermillar.com. Enjoy free shipping, effortless returns, and a complimentary gift with your purchase at petermillar.com/Fox News. petermillar.com/Fox News.
The entire police riot squad in Portland, Oregon is calling it quits. Fox's Christina Coleman explaining why.
Serving on the rapid response team is a voluntary assignment, and the union is defending the 50 officers who decided to step down from that position. They say on top of rampant criticism, these officers also endured months of violent protests that included rocks, bottles, feces, and urine thrown at them. The union said, quote, they did not volunteer to suffer serious injuries, to be subject to warrantless criticism and false allegations by elected officials, or to suffer through baseless complaints.
The response team commander wrote to the chief saying he hopes the issues can be resolved so officers can return to the unit. Natchez, Mississippi becomes an official part of a trail commemorating a nationwide tour by a French general. Fox's Ann Carrick explains.
The Marquis de Lafayette took part in both the American and French revolutions. He returned to visit Natchez, Mississippi on April 18, 1825, as part of a 2-year tour at the invitation of President James Monroe. He stopped at 320 cities in the then 24 states making up the Union. A marker describing Lafayette's stay in Natchez was unveiled this week at a spot overlooking the Mississippi River. Lafayette made his tour as the 50th anniversary of the American Revolution was ending. He was just 19 when he first came to America and was described as the last surviving general of the Continental Army.
I just heard the best sales pitch I've heard in a long time on an airplane. The flight attendant announced, If you paid more than $75 for your round-trip ticket, you overpaid. This is brilliant because everybody on the flight paid more, and I was struck by how all the road warriors stopped typing and reading and working and looked up. The announcement invited us to apply for the airline's credit card. And the sign-up bonus? Enough frequent flyer miles for a free round trip. Talk about turning lemons into lemonade. With some banks offering free credit cards, $75 is an outrage for an annual fee, but a bargain for airline tickets. For more tips on communicating more effectively, hit survivalspeech.com, where you can see how I got the CEO of another major airline to shower me with freebies. I'm Holland Cook.
Good morning. Later this afternoon, I will be engaging in an extramarital affair. Of course, I will wish that I had never made the horrible mistake I'm about to spend several hours making, but sadly, I'm currently too blinded by greed and lust to care about or consider the consequences of my actions. The liaison I will be taking part in shortly with two poor deaf teenage runaways is in direct opposition to the values you elected me to uphold. I also wish to apologize to my wife, Linda, to my two beautiful children, Allison and Christopher. It hurts me more than you will ever know that this scandal will impact your life so terribly. I can only pray that the revelations you will soon hear concerning my fetishes, physical flexibility, and penis will not scar you to the point of dementia. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to get to the hotel immediately, so I will not be taking questions. Thank you.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live. It is Free Talk Live. We're kicking off the third hour of the program. The number is 202-380-3699. It's a brand new phone number. Mark it down. We don't know if we're going to have it for very long. I'm trying to get the 603 line back.
You're going to port it?
We're trying. It may take a couple
of weeks.
Yeah.
Yep, that's generally the time frame everybody gives you.
202-380-3699. It's actually hard to get New Hampshire numbers. The company that we're going through now for these voice over IP lines, they just won't issue them. I can port one in, but they won't issue it.
New Hampshire is due for what they call an NPA split or an area code split.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
So there would be a second area code.
Yeah, so this actually started happening in the advent of the fax machine, where all of a sudden, there were more need for phone numbers than phone numbers that existed, right? And so they can recycle numbers to some extent, but fax machines come out, and then all of a sudden pagers on top of that.
Yeah, everybody needs a new phone
and then
line.
of course cell phones on top of that.
Right.
So you started to see a whole bunch of places get additional area codes to get more numbers, and so places that used to only have one area code now have two, and things of that nature.
What will happen to New Hampshire?
In the West Coast, for example, in the Seattle area, there's 206, 425, and 253.
Oh, okay.
But there's two different areas of 425. It's really interesting. So if you call a 425 number from a 425 number, depending on
it may or may not be
where
long
its
distance.
Origination is, right, it may or may not be long distance within the state.
That stuff is so confusing. All the old long distance rules that still apply on these old phone systems.
In my day, you couldn't call people. You had to call a house with an entire family.
Yeah.
Or how about a party line where you had to share the one phone number with more than one household?
Yeah, did you ever have one of those?
Yeah, I did actually. In one of the foster homes I was in, we shared with the neighbor. And so if you wanted to make a phone call, you had to first pick up the receiver of the phone and listen and see if you had dial tone and see if anyone else is there. And if it was of somewhat importance to you to make that call quickly, you had to butt in like you used to do on the CB radio.
Like, hey, guys.
breaker, hey, how long are you gonna, can I make a call? I gotta make this call before 10 o'clock or whatever, And so you'd have to have this cooperation with your neighbors. I mean, it was kind of interesting because you had to develop a relationship with your neighbors in that respect.
I'd always heard of party lines, but I never knew that's the way they were used. I always thought it was just like a conference call or something like that. I never got that.
Yeah.
I thought it was like chat rooms for phones.
Yeah.
It's quite literally, imagine, having one landline in your house, but having 5 phones, right? One in every room in the house. It's kind of like that, except
I remember that.
Except one of the phones is at your neighbor's house instead of at your house.
Let's go to the calls here. We got Sam. He's on the line, and hopefully he's actually there this time. Sam, are you with us?
Yes.
We have you now.
Wait, Sam, do you have a top hat and a long white beard, and are you generally pointing at people?
No.
Thank goodness.
I thought you were my uncle.
Go ahead with your thoughts, Sam.
Yeah, I'm a long-time listener and a second-time caller. I called
Welcome
you
back.
before sometime. Yeah, I called you before sometime in December, sometime in December 2016 about the state police, because I'm 51 years old and I lived in Dover, Delaware for 47 years, and I've always had to deal with racial profiling, and I didn't receive over 50-something tickets.
Wow.
All my tickets. And they put my son guns and drug charges right on top of mine, and they dispersed that information throughout all the agencies for basically turning their names into the ACLU and the Department of Justice. So ACLU has a gag. Yes, sir.
The ACLU?
Yes. And they pretty much use intimidation tactics against my attorney to keep me from pursuing a lawsuit. I had
the ACLU is using intimidation tactics against your attorney?
No, sir. It's the FBI and the
Okay, I was going to say it doesn't sound like the ACLU would do so. I don't.
Since when can you turn people into the ACLU?
Okay.
Wait a second.
Go ahead.
No. I told you, I was telling you before about the harassment and using the camcorders for over 25, 30 years of being pulled over all the time in my dump trucks and trailers, and I pretty much I have a Facebook, and I posted up the military drones and police drones being used against Americans in Delaware, and they help cover for police pullover. So they had mentioned that on 1410 that they were going to start using drones in 2012, 2013 on 1410. So they're definitely using that and staging entrapment, intimidation, and the Patriot Act was approved right about the same time. So smart TV and Alexa, all that is being used to set up entrapment.
Yeah, actually, Captain, you had something tonight about Amazon and them being hush-hush when it came to what they were doing with the cops.
Folks who have the Ring or whatever that is, the Amazon, they're not sharing how cooperative they're being.
I've been documenting a continuous violation of my rights of going in and out of my house and my girlfriend's house.
Right.
They've been doing this for almost 10 years. And Glenn Beck had spoke about NSA living in homes. And I had the video recording of that.
Yeah, it sounds like you've been harassed for a long time. And
I'm sorry to hear that.
And for a lot of people, this is an everyday concern. This is something where they leave the house, they're dealing with the good chance they're going to get pulled over because they're driving while black or driving while, brown or whatever.
Or even Asian.
And Sam, I want to say thanks for the call tonight. I do appreciate hearing from you, and I appreciate you standing up for your rights and recording video, because that's the best thing you can do. You can't use violence against the state. It's counterproductive. It won't work to use their tactics back against them, but to put them out there on, like you said, a YouTube channel or better yet, library. If you want to check out library, go to lbry.com, because YouTube is all about the state. YouTube loves the government. If you break from the government line when it comes to things like COVID, they're going to take your channel down. It's only a matter of time before, if you break from the government line when it comes to quote unquote domestic extremism or criticizing the police, before you know it, YouTube is going to be targeting those videos too. So, you're not safe on the big tech platforms. And Sam, thanks for the call.
Yeah, so the COVID thing seems to be more common for the people on the right to get a lot of flack from YouTube for. Most of what I've seen people get kicked off on the left for is having an unorthodox stance on Israel. That
really?
seems to be the hot topic that in general the left is really not fond of this whole so at the end of World War II you just occupied this place and sold it 3 times and gave it to these people. They're really not happy about that.
Well, I mean, how was the United States of America founded, right? They took the land of the Native Americans, so it's not the first time.
Captain, give me another quote from the 21 nonconformity quotes.
I like this one particularly for Sam the caller. The opposite of bravery is not cowardice, but conformity.
Ooh.
Yeah. I mean, it sounded like Sam was, being brave and standing up for himself and, exposing these people for the bastards they are.
That's a good one because it is absolutely counter to bravery to do what you're told.
This was from a man, I don't know who this is, Dr. Robert Anthony, who wrote The Ultimate Secret to Total Self-Confidence.
Good one, Bob. Thanks.
Indeed.
Give me another one. We got 21 of these things, so we might as well do a few of them.
Whenever you find yourself on the side of the majority, it's time to reform or pause and reflect. Mark Twain.
He's got some good ones.
Oh, yeah.
All progress has resulted from people who took unpopular positions. That's by Adlai Stevenson from 1954. The Mark Twain was from 1904, by the way.
Yeah.
Go your own way, question everything, accept nothing. Accept no dogma, no cant. There are too many people walking around thinking they're sacred cows and they're only half right.
How many times have you seen somebody with a question everything bumper sticker and then like a Biden bumper sticker or some other kind of
they obviously didn't follow their own advice.
Or like peace bumper stickers and then Biden Obama bumper stickers and things like that. It's just like, hello.
Yeah. Or a peace and then like my son is, in the Air Force or whatever, in the military or something.
So since we're talking about the police, Atlantic City now using sirens to mark a juvenile curfew that kicks off at 10 p.m.
What is... Oh, no, never mind. I see.
Curfews. Yeah, we can talk about that. Plus, the cops are tasing and beating teens for vaping in some parts of the country. This is Free Talk Live.
The Terran Federation and the Terran League have been killing each other for decades. Sheltered, wealthy, and light years from the threat, the members of the 500 have no interest in changing that. When Rear Admiral Terrence Murphy is given governorship of a backwater system, a risk-free path to wealth and power is his for the taking. But Murphy is a man of honor, duty, and responsibility. He intends to stop the killing, whatever the cost. Governor, by David Weber and Richard Fox, from BaneBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments around the world killing innocent people? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin is money that cannot be inflated or controlled by any state. By continuing to use their money, you're perpetuating the killing. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available to you now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. It's Bitcoin.com. Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Free Talk Live.
Who stopped her from sitting down?
People stop black people before Rosa Parks all the time. They used force. They used dogs. They used fire hoses. They brought in the National Guard. Come on, man. It's like you don't even know what happened in your own country.
Get to the present. You're talking about
that's right, Mark. That's the past.
You have to be informed by history.
James, you've acknowledged that there's a bunch of bad laws today, but are you saying now that today that bad laws should be obeyed by good people?
Bad laws should be changed. And
but in the
meantime,
meantime,
you should not break them.
But in the meantime, you're saying obey all the bad laws, no matter what they say.
You need to obey the laws, yeah. The way that they are
like
written.
Rosa Parks should have.
Why don't you go kiss the boot?
All those slaves should have stayed off in their masters' houses. They shouldn't have escaped because that's illegal.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
I'm a little obsessed with My Magic Mud. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, the founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I didn't even know my teeth were coffee stained. A week's worth of use convinced me, and now I use it every 3 or 4 days. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, and I think it cleans better, too. My Magic Mud's available at most local health food stores, Sprouts, Natural Grocers, CVS, Walmart's Natural Beauty Aisle, but I can get it for you for 20% off with coupon code FTL20 at mymagicmud.com. FTL20 mymagicmud.com.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live, and the phones are open for you. If you want to join in, you can dial 202-380-3699. That's 202-380-3699. With you in the studio tonight, it's Ian. Sorry, try that again there, Peakless.
You've been canceled.
Apparently. Peakless Mountaineer.
Look at you with your authority canceling one of the hosts, co-hosts of Free Talk Live.
You guys were a little chatty there before we came back, so I still had you muted. So we're talking about police abuse. We had a caller earlier who said it's a necessary evil. He says, we got to have the police. We've got to have the necessary evil to keep us safe.
Do we?
From other evils.
If we didn't have a violent gang running our lives, then violent gangs would do things.
Now, look, one of the evils that the police are trying to keep you safe from is vaping, okay? It's going to hurt you. If you vape too much, your lungs could get damaged. Now, they probably won't get damaged as much as smoking, but nonetheless, the police are out there in the streets, and they're trying to protect your children from themselves.
And what is the mechanism they're using to protect these children?
Tasers. And probably clubs. I'm not sure. They've been beating on teenagers, according to Reason.com. Billy Binion writing the story that over the last several years, people across the political aisle have conceded that parts of the drug war only serve to exacerbate certain problems. At the same time, politicians of both stripes have engaged in a bipartisan effort to restrict a new boogeyman, vaping.
Don't you know that's bad for your health? You need to stop.
Here's an actual clip of what I think this was Atlantic City. It looks like they're out on the boardwalk. Oh, no, sorry. Ocean City, Maryland.
You mean under the boardwalk?
No, well, they would have taken him under the boardwalk
down by the sea?
If there wasn't a camera nearby to observe what was going on. Thankfully, this guy had friends. Ocean City, Maryland, taking down a 17-year-old tough boy who's standing there surrounded by 5 cops. He's got his hands up. He's wearing a backpack. And he's got a T-shirt on that says Death Row Records, so you know he's trouble. Here's what happened. And he's down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cops that I've counted at least so far in this video, yelling at his friends who actually cared enough to video record this incident.
Well, I mean, it's a good thing they tased him. He might develop a heart condition.
Now, were you watching this video, Lee, as I was playing this? Were you able to see? It's just kind of a small screen here, but did you see why they tased this young man?
I did not.
Now, I suspect they're going to claim that he went for a gun.
It's because they just don't like Dr. Dre's record label.
Well, I'm going to play it back one more time. Watch what he does. He's standing with a backpack.
Hands in the air.
Yeah.
Just standing there.
Do you think he was going for a gun when his hands...
Didn't they tell him to take off the backpack?
Well, I don't know. Let's run it back one more time. Last time. Here we go. Get down on the ground. I heard that. I didn't hear take off the backpack,
okay.
but that might have been what was going through his mind. Was like, well, if I'm going to get down on the ground, I should take my backpack off or whatever. I don't think.
Perhaps they were telling him to dance by yelling, "Get down, get down," and they were like, "He's not getting down. We better tase him."
He's obviously a spy.
He's wearing a Death Row Records T-shirt. He must know how to get down.
Now, this guy is just standing there with his hands up. There's no reason why the police couldn't have approached him, given that there were at least 5 officers standing in a semicircle around him. There's no reason why they had to tell him to get down on the ground, except for the fact that they wanted to just order him around and tell him what to do. They could very well have gone and simply grabbed his hands and put him in handcuffs. Not that I'm advocating that they even talk to him in the first place. Leave people alone. The kid was just vaping.
He is a kid. If I've seen this video before just now,
he's a teenager,
and seeing it again sickened me just as much the first time as it did this time. But it is literally, you're watching a child get tased and just fall to the ground. Somebody who's not harming anybody.
Yeah.
He's not causing any problem to anybody. And the cops are just like, hey, guess what, pal? You're going down.
But what did the police have to say about this event? According to the story at Reason, the Ocean City officers noticed a, quote, large group, unquote, that their vaping was in violation of a local ordinance that prohibits vaping and smoking except in designated areas. So they're outdoors. They're in front of, they're not even near like a front door, right? Like some cities, they say you can't vape or you can't smoke within
40 feet or something.
Or like near a window or a door or something. They're down the stairs from this apartment complex or wherever it is that they're standing in front of. They're nowhere near anything or anyone, but nonetheless.
And I got to ask, like, what kind of mindset do you have where you're like, he's going to pull a gun to defend his right to vape?
For a vaping ticket.
Seriously.
Yeah. Hey, and you know what happens to kids, to children who get beaten or otherwise abused physically, harmed physically by agents of the state? They grow up to become domestic terrorists. Not all of them. Or at least have anti-government sentiment.
You wonder why there are people who are developing anti-government and anti-authoritarian sentiment?
It's because of stuff like this, for sure.
It's because of the organization itself.
After walking away, so the cops went and they threatened the young people first. But then apparently they didn't write the tickets at first. After walking away, cops noticed one of the same teens, Bryant Everett Anderson, engaging or re-engaging with his vape. Quote, officers approached the group again to further address the violation, unquote.
They were like, oh yeah? Huh?
According to the press release from the local gang. Quote, during the course of the interaction, the male refused to provide his proof of identification and became disorderly.
Dun,
so that's why they took the taser
there.
out. How dare
Standing there being disorderly.
Right, how dare you actually, not have an ID that you want to show somebody. And last time I checked, you don't have to carry an ID on you when you're standing in a place.
That's a fact.
In most places. Now, that may not be a fact in all places, Captain. We're not giving legal advice here, but so check your local BS laws and see what they say. Viral video making the rounds appears to cast some doubt on the idea that the situation merited such force. The clip shows the teen with his hands up, surrounded by the officers and public safety aides. He's then tased, falls to the ground, and is later hogtied by the police and carried away.
Yeah, there's actually footage of that as well, and it's also very, very disturbing.
I don't want to see it.
3 other teens were also arrested, according to the government in the city, alleging they too engaged in disorderly conduct and tried to disrupt the scene. By what? Recording video and saying, hey, leave my friend alone?
Well, you see, your masters told you to stop doing a thing, and then you did it. So obviously, you're a threat to society.
This is clearly domestic terrorism. I mean, these kids are obviously anti-government and anti-authority, and we need to get the federal government involved in this.
Out of the mercy of my heart, I didn't even ticket you, and then you go and do it again?
I think, was it last night we were talking about Gitmo, Guantanamo Bay?
Yeah, I think so.
I find it interesting that if they do successfully label American citizens as terrorists of some kind, domestic or otherwise, that it's entirely possible that they could ship American citizens to Guantanamo Bay.
And what exactly is the difference between that and a gulag?
there's less laws for them to violate themselves. Oh, between that and a gulag, I don't.
That's a tough
probably
call.
Nothing.
More coming up. Free Talk Live.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Carl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
Hey, you are going to love the movie Victimless Crime Spree. It's hilarious, heartwarming, and carries a ton of inspiring freedom messages. Feeling down about the lack of liberty in your life? You need to put on this film with some friends and have a good laugh. It's a true story about me and my friends in New Hampshire living free, singing, dancing, and getting arrested. Of course, it's all on video, and the bad guys, the cops, judges, bailiffs, and sheriffs, they all play their part like it's out of a movie or something. You would think we scripted the whole thing, but it's real life. Go ahead and have a watch, and if it's been a while, have another look. I guarantee you'll notice things now that you didn't notice before. And the best part is that you're going to walk away feeling a renewed sense of your own power. You are the master of your destiny, and you will be free in your lifetime. Victimless Crime Spree.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm. On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
Your amp will directly change more lives by getting Free Talk Live in front of people looking for talk radio online and on the air. When you amp Free Talk Live, you get perks like access to the AMP-only Facebook group and AMP podcast. Visit amp.freetalklive.com.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, the number where you can join us on the radio waves. 202-380-3699. That's 202-380-3699. In the studio with you, it's Ian.
Peakless Mountaineer.
And some guy air drumming.
That is Captain Kickass. And, of course, you can take control of the airwaves. You don't have to talk about the police tasing and hog-tying teenagers for vaping in Ocean City because, well, they're just trying to help them stay healthy by tasing them.
Wouldn't it be cool if, like, your vaporizer, which is what is, vape stands for vaporizer. Yeah. It's the shortened word. Wouldn't it be cool if your vaporizer could just vaporize them when they harass you?
Well, I mean, how are we supposed to maintain our health if we don't have people beating us up for things that they think are a threat?
Tasing us and hog-tying us when...
Yeah, and apparently there's more video from this. We watched one of them where a young man who's standing with his hands up, surrounded by 5 cops. He's not doing anything threatening at all. And the cops tase him and then later hog-tie him away. Apparently in the same incident, additional videos show a group of officers piling on top of another teenager while a cop knees him repeatedly in the side, as 3 other teens in the incident were also arrested.
Well, you know what that sounds like? It sounds like gang behavior.
Sure does. But look, it's for their own good, and we have a necessary evil here, Captain. So, we need this.
You're not looking at the big picture.
Okay, Robert.
I mean, sure, it was bad for his health to, beat him, tase him, hog-tie him. But think of all the other people that watched this and go, I am never letting them catch me vape again.
It was good for the society.
Exactly.
It helped society out in some unknown way, shape, or form that's totally immeasurable.
I mean, didn't we learn back in the 20th century that electroshock therapy is a good, positive thing for humanity? I mean, that is a way to change how people behave, isn't it?
This is how you establish respect for the law, by having arbitrary, nonsensical laws that you brutally enforce on children.
Let's go to your calls and thoughts here. We have on the line with us, Angela is in Arizona. Angela, you're on Free Talk Live. Angela in Arizona. Angela going once. Angela going twice. All right, we'll put her back on hold. How about David in New Mexico? David, you're on Free Talk Live.
Yeah, some crime is being committed by government officials, just convicted. But first of all, I'm listening to you on KENN, Farmington, New Mexico. You're also on KINN on Saturday nights.
And
sadly,
and Kin.
That's right.
Yeah, KINN is in Alamogordo, New Mexico, and sadly you're not on Saturdays anymore like you were on KIVA. Eddie Aragon is talking about wine instead for some reason. But anyway, and why have I bothered to call you? I'm not criticizing you guys. Why do I call you for the last 10 years annoying people? Because the state of New Mexico illegally trafficked my children. Judge M. Monica Zamora did that. I proved that with a unanimous decision from the New Mexico Court of Appeals saying exactly that. And that's why I spend my time calling. Now, the same New Mexico government that trafficked my children illegally that I proved, and tomorrow's Father's Day, isn't it?
Oh, wow. Okay. Thanks for the reminder.
Yeah, and I said goodbye to my kids one day 14 years ago, not knowing I'd never see them again, and I've never seen them again. And it's Father's Day again. All right? So that's why I call. Now, convicted a couple days ago, within the last couple days, another state of New Mexico government official, former government official, Demesia Padilla, who was convicted of 2 felony counts of embezzlement from a business that she was supplying services to while she was the Tax and Rev Cabinet Secretary. Now, that's in addition to the Children, Youth, and Families, CYFD, the CPS here in New Mexico, that I told you before, that this is still ongoing and is still under investigation by Attorney General Hector Balderas. Now, Hector Balderas said that this is a paraphrase quote in regard to the felony convictions of Demesia Padilla, that we will hold people accountable no matter who they are, what position they're in. And yet Hector Balderas is silent on the Children, Youth, and Families situation where they were caught by whistleblowers destroying public records and destroying evidence. Now, there is a Whistleblower Protection Act that Blaylock, the Cabinet Secretary, violated when he fired the whistleblowers. There's an Inspection of Public Records Act that Blaylock, Cabinet Secretary, violated when he destroyed public records. There is the Fifth Amendment, due process protections, which protects evidence under due process, which Blaylock clock destroyed when he destroyed these public records.
Man, I mean, it just keeps going on and on with the corruption.
It's a good thing that the law is equally applied to everyone, and since the since the Court of Appeals found that they were illegally trafficked, it's a good thing that that judge is in jail now.
Except not.
And I'm sure he got his kids back. No, he didn't.
No. Thank you, David. Good luck. Sorry about the situation.
His situation is horrible.
And it's not uncommon.
And no, it is not uncommon.
And it's, you see so much of this corruption go on constantly, one government agent getting busted and then another government agent. And of course, these are just the tips of the iceberg. A lot of these people are completely protected from any kind of prosecution. If they're high up enough, then the agencies that are doing the busting of these other people are going to do protecting of these other, the higher ups. And there's just no way that anything's ever going to change. It doesn't matter who you elect. It doesn't matter if you sweep out all the bad guys and put in a new group. As long as it's people in positions of power, you're going to find that people are corrupted.
Well, and I noticed David said that, I think it was the judge or somebody, the politician maybe, said that they were going to treat everybody, in the same way, and they would, figure out,
I've got a bridge I can sell you.
And then, of course, didn't do the exact thing that they said that they would do. So,
Right.
And this is totally common, and people just I don't know what it is, man. Their memory span, their ability to recall things 2 weeks later goes away, and everybody just puts up with it for no reason. There's no reason for anybody to put up with it.
I don't think people think they can do anything about it. I mean, even if they do understand how corrupt things seem to be or actually are, they feel like you can't fight City Hall. You've heard that before, right?
Yeah.
Well, let's defund City Hall.
Well, that's a great plan. Who's going first?
I use crypto all the time.
Well, that's cool, but they're going to demand, property tax payments, and then if you don't pay, they're going to come take your house from you. Whether you're using crypto or not is a non-factor in that whole situation, and most people aren't willing to lose their home.
I think that everybody out there that feels the same way that we do here on Free Talk Live about most of this stuff should gather together with other people who feel the same way. Join the Rebel Alliance, if you will, because guess what? We're it.
I mean,
we're the closest thing to that analogy that exists currently. And so move to New Hampshire, join the rest of us, and see if we can do something about it, because I don't see any other way.
I don't either. I want to see some other way, and let me know.
Well, like I said, crypto, because state and local governments are absolutely at this point dependent on the dole that they get from the federal government.
Yep.
Now, if you remove the federal government's ability to print money, they lose all of that power.
No, I agree with that, and that's why they're cracking down on crypto currently.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's going to get worse, sadly, in my opinion, before it gets better.
Well, but even then, and so I don't disagree with either of you, but taking Captain's idea and combining it with the crypto thing is an even more powerful thing.
Yes.
Because crypto's great, and it seems like it's taking off in a way that it never has this year with mainstream celebrities like Elon Musk, Paris Hilton getting behind, Bitcoin, for instance.
We've got a foreign country saying, hey,
El
it's going to be our currency.
So this could be another record year, and I think it already is another record year. It certainly has hit a record high, the price of Bitcoin. But to concentrate Bitcoiners and cryptocurrency people together in the same geographic area also provides a real unusual circumstance, and that is that there's an actual market. There's a real concentrated, real physical, real life market for crypto.
Yeah, you can create a community of people who trade their goods and services for this.
Exactly. And that doesn't really exist in most places around the planet.
Yeah, and it's great to be able to cut the murderers out on your business.
Yeah, 202-380-3699. You can take control of the airwaves here. Remaining moments are coming up. We got enough time for you if you want to join us here on Free Talk Live's Saturday show. The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with agristhosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agrist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to agristhosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's agristhosting.com.
The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it! You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Do you appreciate what we do? Help us advertise, market, and promote for just $5 a month at amp.freetalklive.com.
Yep, it's Free Talk Live. The number is 202-380-3699. That's 202-380-3699. With you in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
Peakless Mountaineer.
The Reverend Captain Kickass is also here.
I want to say thanks to Paza. Paza is a Free Talk Live silver amplifier. And Paza, appreciate you joining the AMP program and supporting Free Talk Live. AMP stands for Advertise, Market, and Promote. It is a way to help us help Free Talk Live get on more radio stations. We've got about 185 stations right now. They're not all on right now, but over the whole week, we have that many stations airing our show, and that allows new people to discover the ideas of freedom, liberty, cryptocurrency, as we've been discussing. And that's important because we're really, I'm sorry to say, after almost 20 years, really the only show that talks about those things.
Yeah.
So, if you value what we do, please go to the AMP program at amp.freetalklive.com. I mean, I would have loved if there was like some sort of libertarian explosion and we have like, a half a dozen competitors in syndication, but we don't.
Nice. I'm glad you pointed out, though, because to our listeners, at least, we can, at a minimum, serve as sort of a canary in the coal mine. You know what I mean? So,
you mean like how we got raided on March 16th and you might be next? Is that what you mean by canary in the coal mine?
Yeah, so when this show goes off air,
yeah, it's bad. Things are getting bad.
You might think that the government may look at us and go, these guys are talking about anti-government sentiments. They're extremists. Well, what's more extreme is us not being allowed to have this show.
I prefer to describe my sentiments as being pro-peace.
Well, I understand. But in the eyes of the government,
I mean, questioning our right to wage a forever war.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to question all the wars because peace is a good idea. Yeah, peace is a good idea.
The war on terror, the war on drugs, the war in Afghanistan, the never-ending war.
Yeah.
Suggesting that we should end war. Obviously, that's the kind of thinking that a terrorist does.
And I think that the government should be ended as well because it's contrary to the idea of peace. I want to see peace on Earth, and the only way we're going to get to that is by ending the institution of coercion, the monopoly on force.
And to your point, people have to be allowed to operate in a way that incentivizes them to be peaceful. And you can't do that if you have this organization that people can kind of use to target each other, right? These red flag laws, these snitch lines. This is not a way to incentivize people to act peacefully with each other. This is not a way to incentivize them to cooperate with each other, to tolerate each other, even though you may have differences of opinion and things like that. This is not how you do that to the human species. There's no incentive at all for people to act peacefully in accordance with the organization known as government.
And the thing about it is, I mean, in addition to just the raw numbers of violations that they commit on a daily basis, it's not just violent. It's not just an evil. It's hypocrisy. And it's the kind of evil that people will look directly at and say, this isn't evil. They will look directly at the government doing things like this, hog-tying teenagers for vaping.
People are more quick to pull out a phone and videotape it than they are to step in and help.
And instead of looking at that like it is what it is, they look at it and go, well, that's just the price of a civil society.
That's what you get for vaping.
That's the exact opposite of a civil society.
Yeah.
This is what not being civil society looks like.
Right. The only reason you should hogtie a person is if they're in a place destroying it or, disrespecting the rules of the owner and they won't leave, and you need to have men do something to make a person leave. Then if you got to grab them and remove them, then you do that, but you don't have to hurt them.
It's the old scene from every bar fight you've ever seen on TV in the movies where the bouncer chucks a guy out the window or something,
and then they're done. Then they're done. They don't go and they put them in a cage. They just get them off the premises. Right?
Yeah, the whole idea of arrest as a decent idea is that you are currently and actively a threat. You are a threat to people's lives, health, and property. Therefore, we need to make you not a threat to people's lives, health, and property.
That's right.
Maybe you're hammered and you're breaking things, and okay, well, we need to stop you doing that. Or maybe you're about to cause a whole bunch of mayhem. Okay,
and you're supposed to use
to
the minimum amount of force in order to accomplish that task.
Right. But
if you're humane.
But this idea that, by defying the king's orders, you have already caused yourself to be a menace to society. You are vaping without the king's permission.
Disorderly conduct.
Yeah. And that justifying the idea that, let alone the brutality of the tactics that they use to arrest you.
Oh, the first kid that got arrested, he had it easy compared to another one. I was watching the other video where some kid's on the ground.
Oh, yeah,
and
watch the blood drain from your face.
There's a cop kneeing him as hard as he possibly can, and it is just... And there's literally another dozen cops standing around.
Yep.
It's just absolutely insane. Captain, you had some 21 nonconformity quotes. I don't know if you want to pick another one. I also want to tell you about social.freetalklive.com. We talked about big tech earlier on the show tonight and how they're going to be working with the federal government to help snitch on people who might have anti-government or anti-hierarchical tendencies or beliefs. There's new domestic terror laws that they're proposing, and you better believe they're going to be roping in Facebook and roping in Twitter and all these other companies to, Well, they've already got a list of the things you've said, but to report you and then, save that data and send it on to your federal masters.
And a quick note about that, because you got to watch as they sneak in changes in the language. So they use the phrase social hierarchy. So we can't even talk about the fact that it's political, because you might actually realize that political things are violent things.
Yes.
No. It's social hierarchy. It promotes being social.
You're
for me
antisocial
to
if
be
you're
able
against
to
it.
just, beat people at will and kidnap them and steal their stuff. That's social hierarchy.
I do have a high interest in calling things what they are. I think substituting the word violent or violence for political may do that trick. Right. So, it's a political debate. No, it's a violence debate.
Right. Yeah. It's a debate over who gets to control the violence.
To control the
entity.
monopoly on violence.
That's exactly right.
So if you want to have a place where you can go to express yourself that's a lot like the other social media, in fact, it's a lot like Twitter. That's what the Mastodon platform was designed to ape. It was designed to be like Twitter, but without the central control.
Yep.
You can go to social.freetalklive.com. It's a decentralized, open source, federated platform. Mastodon, it's the gold standard of independent social media on the internet. And you don't have to be a libertarian to post there. You're welcome to join us and express yourself and have a lot more freedom to do so. Go to social.freetalklive.com. What'd you find for us of the 21 nonconformity quotes as highlighted by the Foundation for Economic Education?
This is by Eric Hoffer, who is a moral philosopher. I'm not familiar with
as
his
opposed
work.
to an immoral philosopher.
Right, yes. It is the individual only who is timeless. Societies, cultures, civilizations, past and present, are often incomprehensible to outsiders. But the individual's hungers, anxieties, dreams, and preoccupations have remained unchanged through the millennia.
Yeah, and the other thing is they've been constantly repressed, constantly oppressed, told what to do, told they can't have
the
things they want.
The individual is still the smallest minority on
and the
planet
most
Earth.
oppressed.
And the most oppressed.
Well, and it's always these groupings that dehumanize people. I mean, that's how they work. You have to say, you are not in my group, and therefore you are subhuman, and that is what justifies me to act toward you in this way. Whereas, if you recognize them not as part of this demonic group, but as an individual that's suffering the same summers and winters as you, the same hungers and thirsts, that bleeds red just like you do, then you're going to treat them like a human being.
You're much more likely. And I think that's a great point. And the government gang wants to separate people into groups, and they want those people to see the groups as their enemy.
They want
not the government.
They want the pitchfork people angry at the torch people, and the torch people angry at the pitchfork people, so they never realize who's doing the bad stuff.
And it is always a tiny minority of people that are either sociopaths or mimicking this sociopathy.
Right.
So the strange thing is that most of the time, you will actually be right when you can trust a human being, even without information. Most of the time,
That's
you're
true.
right.
Most people are good.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. We have managed to feed the goodness in ourselves. Because good and evil cuts down straight in the center of every human being. And you can either feed the evil in you or the good in you. And by being in a society, you can help each other feed the good. And that is where we're at. And it's what we're clawing back and not letting be stripped from us by these authoritarian goons.
Head over to freetalklive.com. We've got archives, so if you've missed a moment of this program, just grab it up any old time you want. We've got, 15 plus years worth of archives there, searchable. Check them out over at freetalklive.com. You can join us online in the meantime. Check out lordkickass.com for more Captain Kickass. We'll see you tomorrow night for the Sunday show. It's Free Talk Live.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover springs her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more